Chapter 1384. What a private treasure vault! So all the immortal rank treasures were there? Lin was very excited, but a calm expression appeared on his face. If that's the case, then lead the way. I want to see just how many filthy treasures this evil immortal king has hidden away. Sun Biyu's lips twitched, and she nodded obediently. Please come with me, white-robed exalted immortal. After ransacking the immortal king palace treasure vault, they began to make their way toward the immortal king's private treasure vault. With Feng Wuya's personality, he wanted to keep everything for himself, so there had to be a lot of unimaginable treasures in this private treasure vault. Everyone arrived at the immortal king's main bedroom in the Spring Light Palace. Sun Biyu activated a mechanism, and the ground split open to reveal a secret passageway that led downward. Everyone walked down the passageway to discover that there was a circular black enchantment barrier up ahead. Crap, there's an enchantment barrier set up by immortal King Feng Wuya here. This might be a little troublesome. An awkward expression appeared on Sun Biyu's face. When she had come here with Feng Wuya, this enchantment barrier hadn't existed. Feng Wuya must have removed the enchantment barrier prior to her arrival. Even the simplest enchantment barrier set up by a Dao integration stage super mighty figure was extremely terrifying. Just as everyone was looking at this with grave expressions, boom! A white light flashed through Lin's eyes, and he flicked a finger, upon which the black enchantment barrier shattered like glass. An enchantment barrier of this caliber is useless. Lin spoke in a cold voice before leading the way. All of the exalted immortals drew a sharp intake of breath. The enchantment barrier set up by immortal King Feng Wuya was unable to withstand a casual attack from the white-robed exalted immortal? As expected of the number 1 exalted immortal on the Divine Source continent, Wang Chun, Luo Yan, and the others all wore expressions of awe and veneration as they carefully followed behind Lin. In contrast, Yi Shi had a completely natural expression on his face. Wasn't it normal for a mighty alchemy patriarch to do something like this? Lin continued onward without any obstructions, and he arrived before a black metal gate with lotus flowers carved onto its surface before crushing the gate to dust with a single slap. All of a sudden, an extremely dazzling light erupted from within the gate, and at the same time, a rich immortal treasure aura erupted forth, almost knocking him flying. This is the power of immortal treasures formed naturally by many immortal items. Lin drew a sharp intake of breath as a look of shock appeared on his face. This time, not only Lin, but even Yi Shi, who regarded treasures as dirt, was completely entranced. Yang Lingqian's body trembled slightly, and she almost fainted from excitement. Although these treasures did not have much to do with her, she was still very excited. It was like a beggar who saw a mountain of gold. Even if the gold didn't belong to him, his heart would still beat faster, and he might even suffer a heart attack. In front of Lin, there were immortal weapons, immortal pills, and all kinds of immortal treasures. He immediately activated his divine inspection technique without any hesitation. Giant Spirit Devouring Heart Brush, Winged Dragon Gauntlet, Divine Vitality Talisman, Sky Poison Purple Gold Saber, Sky Fire Red Heart Bracelet, Golden Sun Immortal Pill, Shattering 9 Funeral Pill, Ancient Autumn Immortal Pill, Hades Winged Dragon Pill, Jade Immortal Grass Soul Immortal Pill, 9 Revolutions Soul Condensing Pill Immortal Grade Materials, Profound Ice Magic Grass, Ghost Lotus Vine, Heavenly Demon Bone, Pure Ice Copper, Desolate Ancient Coconut Tree. Too many. There were simply too many. Lin had never seen so many immortal rank treasures in his life. 23 immortal weapons, 38 immortal pills, and 106 immortal rank materials. There were even 3 divine rank materials, which were the Lightning Essence Star Crystal, the Primordial Demonic Bone, and the Book from the Heavens. However, there were probably no tool refinement masters in this world who could refine divine tools, so there weren't any divine tools. Under Enlin's insistence, Shi reluctantly accepted the 8 immortal pills. Thus, Enlin stowed away 23 immortal weapons, 30 immortal pills, 106 immortal rank materials, and 3 divine rank materials. Gongsun Biu, Wang Chun, Luo Yan, and the others swallowed involuntarily upon seeing this. You really are an evil tyrant. To think that you would hide so many treasures that you've plundered. What a ghastly sight. Enlin spoke with a righteous expression. When the group of elders heard this, the corners of their mouths could not help but twitch. Please, when you say this, can you not laugh so happily? Enlin turned to Luo Yan. It's your turn now. Where is the place where the immortal king's envoy is gathering all these treasures? Luo Yan bowed respectfully. Please come with me, white-robed exalted immortal. Everyone moved to another location. This time, they arrived at a black lake deep within the Immortal King Palace. Most of the buildings around the Immortal King Palace had already been reduced to rubble, but the black lake was completely unscathed. It was still as smooth and flawless as a black gemstone. A crimson divine Tao flame appeared in Luo Yan's hand as he drew a circle over the black lake. Black water cave, open! The lake water began to churn and splash before converging to form a circular black hole. This is the place, white-robed exalted immortal, Luo Yan spoke with a respectful expression. Enlin nodded before following Luo Yan into the circular black hole. After entering the black hole, they were greeted by the sight of an extremely peculiar crystal mine. These crystal mines were inky black in color, and they appeared to be extremely profound, as if they were plunged into a dark abyss. This is... Enlin was a little astonished at the sight of the crystal ores that littered the ground. He could confirm that these ores were definitely no ordinary ores. Luo Yan bowed respectfully. White-robed exalted immortal, these are the crystals that our immortal king's envoy has gathered for thousands of years. They are known as dark crystals, and they contain extremely rich dark-type energy. They can assist in the observation of the Tao of Yin as well as unleash a one-time dark-type energy. Immortal King Feng Wuya ordered his envoy to gather these crystals for thousands of years just for these things. Enlin was a little incredulous as he looked at the black crystal mines before him. Don't underestimate these crystals, white-robed exalted immortal. Setting aside the fact that they are extremely beneficial to the cultivation of dark-type cultivators, just the detonation material alone is extremely terrifying. A single dark crystal can severely wound or even kill a top-rate exalted immortal. Luo Yan warned with a serious expression. Enlin was shocked. It's that bad *SS? Then why didn't the immortal king use them against me? An awkward expression appeared on Luo Yan's face. He looked at Enlin with a hint of fear, but there was also a hint of yearning in his eyes. Perhaps the immortal king didn't want to waste these dark crystals? Perhaps he thought that killing you would be a piece of cake. Luo Yan's speculation was very reasonable. This was most likely immortal King Feng Wuya's true thoughts as well. However, the grass on the immortal king's grave was already 30 feet tall. Also, these dark crystals have a very special effect. Luo Yan said in a hushed voice. What effect? Enlin asked. If an enemy is struck by a dark crystal, the dark crystal will release a special type of spiritual power that can engulf the enemy's consciousness and render them retarded. In other words, the enemy can easily become retarded by the explosion. Powerful enemies may only become retarded for a short period of time, but weaker enemies will definitely become permanently retarded. Luo Yan explained with a solemn expression. Enlin's eyes lit up upon hearing this. He really wanted to try out such a special effect. Thus, he turned toward Luo Yan and the others. Chapter 1385. Luo Yan and the others turned pale with fright. Enlin's expression was simply too terrifying. White-robed exalted immortal, we've told you everything we know. You promised to give us a lighter sentence. Wang Chen spoke in a trembling voice. Enlin didn't really want to use the dark crystals on them. He just wanted to give it a try. Now that he thought about it, there were actually quite a few targets for him to experiment on, so there was no need to use Wang Chun and the others as he had other uses for them. Alright, I'll spare your lives. Unlin nodded. Aside from the deceased Grand Elder Fu Haozong and the 6 Kunlun divine generals who had escaped, all of the other elders were actually quite moderate, so he could try to teach them a lesson. You may be spared, but you cannot escape punishment. All of you must swear Dao heart vows that you will no longer bully the weak, and you will carry out every single policy of the 4-9 Immortal Palace and swear loyalty to the 4-9 Immortal Sect for the rest of your lives. Unlin spoke with a solemn expression. Wang Chun, Luo Yan, and Sun Biu immediately nodded upon hearing this. However, they soon came to their senses. Wait, what's going on with the 4-9 Immortal Palace and the 4-9 Immortal Sect? Luo Yan faltered momentarily before asking. Unlin clasped his hands behind his back. From this day forth, there will be no more Immortal King Palace. There will only be the 4-9 Immortal Palace. The three of them stirred upon hearing this. Even the Immortal King was dead, so it was naturally the white-robed exalted immortals' turn to rule over the entire Divine Source continent. The man before them was the most revered living being in this world, so whatever he said was the law. With this in mind, the three of them bowed again. Yes, Immortal King. Immortal King. Don't give me such a vulgar title. Unlin was not happy to hear this. Awkward expressions appeared on Luo Yan and the others' faces. What was wrong with the King of Immortals? Please refer to me as Immortal Emperor. Unlin replied. Luo Yan, Wang Chun, and Sun Biu. Haha, I'm just joking. You can continue to refer to me as the white-robed exalted immortal. I quite like that title, so don't try to be formal with me. Unlin waved his hand indifferently. Everyone was grumbling internally. Was the white-robed exalted immortal not a formalist? After that, the three elders swore an oath on their Dao hearts, and made an oath that was akin to losing their rights and humiliating their country. Once they violated the oath, their Dao hearts would collapse and they would lose all their cultivation. This result was actually better than what they had imagined. However, it was a little strange that they could not hurt or humiliate those with low cultivation. Weren't powerful exalted immortals supposed to be the most precious people in the world? Wasn't it perfectly justified for him to occasionally bully creatures that were weaker than him? This was the culture of the Divine Source continent. The strong were revered to the extreme. If you were the most powerful living being, then the other living beings would be convinced. If a lower realm met a higher realm living being, they would have to kneel and pay their respects. The Immortal King's envoy belonged to the core faction of the Immortal King. Thus, the Immortal King's envoy would be revered by everyone. Of course, these were deep-rooted beliefs that Unlin would gradually change over time. He had established the 4-9 Immortal Palace for this very reason. He wanted to improve this world. Ishi actually couldn't understand what Unlin was doing. If it were up to Ishi, he could just go back after taking the heavenly Dao fragment. What did this world have to do with them? Moreover, the greatest tumor, the Immortal King, was already dead, and the world would gain a new lease of life. Sooner or later, it would return to the era where 100 schools of thought contended and a myriad of sects were established. However, Unlin didn't share the same sentiments. In a situation where they were without a leader, every upheaval that occurred meant that war would ensue and countless lives would be lost. He really couldn't just leave like that. He could just treat it as taking so many of Feng Wuya's treasures as a way to do good deeds. Unlin arrived at the main palace of the Immortal King Palace, and to his surprise, he discovered an extremely beautiful woman standing respectfully off to the side. She immediately knelt to Unlin and extended a respectful salute. I am Yan Shuqin, and I pay my respects to the white-robed exalted immortal. You're the Immortal Queen, Yan Shuqin? Unlin was a little surprised. Yan Shuqin was a return to void intermediate stage exalted immortal, and she had a very good opportunity to escape when the heavens had been shattered. The immortal king is already dead, so I don't deserve to be referred to as the immortal queen anymore. You can just refer to me by my name. Yan Shuqin's voice was gentle and sweet, like cotton candy, and she was completely devoid of the ferocity and experience of a palace mistress. Anlin nodded as his expression eased slightly. All right, little Qin, please rise. Tell me why you're here. Yan Shuqin stood up with a faint smile on her exquisitely beautiful face. There are still 623 concubines in the Spring Light Palace who are willing to stay to serve you, white-robed exalted immortal. When would you like to visit them, immortal king? Anlin drew a sharp intake of breath upon hearing this. They're willing to serve me? Those are the concubines of the immortal king. It's not like I'm into them. Yan Shuqin pursed her lips before speaking in a gentle voice. White-robed exalted immortal, you're aware of immortal King Feng Wuya's condition. Those 600 or so concubines are actually still virgins, and they're all willing to throw themselves into your arms. All you have to do is nod your head, and they're all yours. Gasp. All he had to do was nod his head, and he could have a harem of over 600 beauties? Anlin's heart jolted upon hearing this. It had to be said, this was really quite exciting. However, he felt like he had seen something like this before. There were over 1,000 concubines, but over half of them were still willing to stay by his side. It seemed that the elimination method of the 2,000 people strategy was quite effective. He had successfully eliminated all of these women who were willing to give up many things in order to climb up the ladder. As for whether he could keep all of these concubines who were willing to serve him, was Anlin that kind of person? I, the white-robed exalted immortal, said that I would give them freedom, and I will give them freedom. Do they want to stay by my side? Sorry, I don't like to have a harem, Anlin replied in an indifferent voice. Yan Shuqin turned to Anlin with a dumbstruck expression. In this world, all powerful beings were revered and had many wives and concubines. The white-robed exalted immortal didn't even want beauties who were offering themselves to him? Why? Yan Shuqin couldn't help but ask. Anlin looked at Yan Shuqin with a serious expression. Because my heart is very small, and it can only contain one person. Yan Shuqin was dumbstruck. This was the first time she had heard something like this, and it was coming from the mouth of the most powerful being on the divine source continent. This was the first time she had ever been struck by a peculiar feeling. Her heart rate accelerated for some reason, and she was no longer as calm and collected as before. Yang Lingxian was also staring blankly at the man before her. In that case, if that person was referring to her, then she would definitely be the happiest person in this world. However, she knew that this was impossible. Dismiss all of the concubines in the Spring Light Palace. Just give them some spirit stones. Also, I don't understand why you haven't left yet. Anlin turned to Yan Shuqin. Chapter 1386. Why hadn't he left yet? Yan Shuqin didn't really know the answer to this question. Perhaps it was because she was afraid that the white-robed exalted immortal would be enraged by her departure and destroy her family. Perhaps it was also because she yearned for this legendary man. Perhaps it was purely out of curiosity, and she wanted to see what kind of man the white-robed exalted immortal was like. Thankfully, she had made the right choice. She felt like the white-robed exalted immortal was even more perfect than she had imagined. The only thing that was a little frustrating to her was that the white-robed exalted immortal seemed to be completely unmoved by her exceptional beauty. His heart was too small and could only contain one person. But he could have her in his eyes. Many thoughts flashed through Yan Shuqin's mind in that instant, but a vibrant smile soon appeared on her face as she asked in a gentle voice, "Will the white-robed exalted immortal let me go?" Her cultivation aptitude was top-notch, she was extremely beautiful, and she was extremely talented. She was naturally not going to fall for someone who was too ordinary for her taste. The white-robed exalted immortal had fulfilled all of her fantasies about the man of her dreams. Yan Shuqin was confident that there was no woman on this entire continent who could surpass her in terms of beauty. She had already expressed her goodwill, so the white-robed exalted immortal would most likely be tempted no matter how high his expectations were. She stood on the spot with her white dress fluttering in the wind, making her appear like a snow lotus in full bloom. She was exquisitely beautiful as she looked at Anlin with her limpid eyes that were filled with a different kind of emotion. Anlin was quite stunned by Yan Shuqin's beauty, and he nodded with a smile. I naturally wouldn't want you to leave like this. As expected, all men were captivated by her charms. Yan Shuqin raised her head slightly, and a hint of confidence welled up in her heart. A faint smile appeared on her delicate features, and she appeared to be a little shy and a little hesitant, as if she wanted to say something. She paused momentarily before speaking in a gentle voice. If you don't want me to leave, then I wouldn't dare to. Oh, don't misunderstand. What I'm trying to say is that you're the Spring Light Palace Lord, so you should have a lot of good stuff to help Feng Wuya with. Hence, I don't want you to leave just like that. At the very least, you should hand over some resources before you leave. Anlin looked at Yan Shuqin with an expectant expression. Yan Shuqin's mouth was slightly agape as if she had heard it wrong. She was stunned for a few seconds. Yang Lingxian couldn't help but burst into laughter. Yan Shuqin's snow-white face was flushed with shame and indignation. I've already sacrificed my body, and you're only interested in my money? She felt very wronged, but she didn't dare to get angry. She could only purse her lips and look at Anlin silently. All right. It's just a matter of money, and you look so wronged? It seems that talking about money hurts feelings. All right, you can go. I won't make things difficult for you. Anlin waved his hand and said, You're free now. Freedom. Anlin's words made Yan Shuqin's heart tremble again. Yan Shuqin looked at the man in front of her who had a warm smile on his face. His smile was sincere and pure. After a long while, a genuine smile finally appeared on her face, and she felt unprecedentedly relaxed. Freedom. This was something that she didn't even dare to think about in the past. That's right, it was all over. She was still feeling quite uneasy, and just when she was about to be trapped in a cage, the man before her had smashed it into smithereens. It was such a simple and beautiful ending. Thank you for your kindness, white-robed exalted immortal. Yan Shuqin extended another graceful curtsy. Her smile was vibrant and enchanting, and she was like a celestial maiden from the heavens. All right, you can go now. Anlin still had many other things to do. Yan Shuqin made her way out of the palace before turning around with a smile on her face. White-robed exalted immortal, if you want to continue fighting for the liberation of oppressed women, I can help you. Huh. Anlin faltered slightly upon hearing this. He didn't know what she meant by this, but he still asked, Is it free? Yan Shuqin. Free. She thought to herself for a moment before adding, On the Divine Source continent, female cultivators are still a little inferior to male cultivators. Hence, I want to fight for the best for all female cultivators. That's great. Anlin smiled. Let's keep in touch in the future. Yan Shuqin nodded with a smile before flying up into the clouds and disappearing into the distance. Yan Shuqin has perfectly interpreted this poem. Yang Lingxian crossed her arms and harumphed coldly with displeasure. What a beautiful and charming poem. Yang Lingxian crossed her arms and harumphed coldly. At the same time, she was also cursing Yan Shuqin for flirting with Anlin even before she left. How could she put on such an innocent facade? She's actually not as beautiful as you. Anlin suddenly turned around with a smile on his face. Huh! Yang Lingxian was a little taken aback by Anlin's sudden words. When she finally came to her senses, a deep blush had already appeared on her face. What are you saying? My God! Anlin is saying that I'm more beautiful than Yan Shuqin? Is this what they mean by beauty is in the eye of the beholder? Yang Lingxian was already screaming internally. At the same time, her heart rate accelerated, and she became a little flustered. What should I say? What should I do? Before she had a chance to do anything, Lin continued, "You're more straightforward and honest than her. You also have a good personality, so you're naturally more beautiful than Yan Shuqin." Yang Lingxian. Here, this pair of bracelets suits you very well. I'll give them to you as a token of my appreciation for your cooperation during this period of time. Lin handed a pair of bracelets to Yang Lingxian. These are heavenly flame red heart bracelets. Yang Lingxian stared at the bracelets with incredulity on her face. These are immortal tools. She was a little hesitant, as if she didn't want to accept such an expensive gift. In the Divine Source continent, even exalted immortals of the Return to Void stage might not possess immortal tools. She was only a cultivator at the spirit-nurturing pinnacle stage. I told you to accept it, so don't be so polite. Do I really need an immortal tool? Lin couldn't help but chuckle at the sight of Yang Lingxian's flustered and fearful expression. He picked up her slender hand and put the bracelets on. Not bad. You're a flame cultivator, so your red dress matches the heavenly flame red heart bracelets very well. Lin nodded with satisfaction at the sight of the crimson bracelets on Yang Lingxian's slender wrists. Yang Lingxian stared at the bracelets in her hands with a dazed expression. She spun around gracefully, her posture elegant and graceful. She raised her hand and looked up at the bracelet that shone brightly under the sunlight. She couldn't help but smile. Light danced in the air, and a red fragrance wafted toward her. It was as if she were a beauty, and the fragrance of pearls and emeralds swept through the air. Yang Lingxian smiled. Thank you. Chapter 1387. Immortal King Feng Wuya had perished on the immortal slaying platform. The white-robed exalted immortal mended the heavens with his sword. The Immortal King Palace officially became the 4-9 Immortal Palace. The Immortal King Palace was purged, and all of the concubines of the Spring Light Palace regained their freedom. One piece of news after another spread throughout the entire continent at an extremely fast speed. All of the living beings on the continent realized one thing, which was that the ruler of this world had finally changed again. The new ruler was the white-robed exalted immortal Lin. Lin had risen to power at an extremely fast rate, and he had ended Immortal King Feng Wuya's reign of close to 10,000 years. All of the living beings on the continent were extremely astonished. They all knew that Lin had won through absolute power, and there had been no fluke involved. This white-robed exalted immortal appeared to be a benevolent man who didn't lust after women. He was willing to help oppressed women, and he had mended the heavens with his sword to save the world. The new ruler of this continent was probably better than the immortal king, right? In a land of peace and prosperity. The 20,000 women who had been rescued from the Leaping Wolf Mansion and over 2,000 concubines from the Spring Light Palace were greeted by the white-robed exalted immortal again. He looked at all of them with a smile. Immortal King Feng Wuya is dead. I am the ruler of this continent now. From this day forth, all of you are free. They would never forget the gentle and domineering expression on the white-robed exalted immortal's face when he said this. In that instant, he was so dazzling and alluring. All of the women were free, but the situation on the Divine Source continent was not over yet. The white-robed exalted immortal, Lin, and Demon King Shi began a crusade against the remaining forces of the immortal king. The 6 Kunlun divine generals, Xinglong, Guiting, Langya, Duhua, River God, and Yanji, were all top-rate exalted immortals. Xinglong and Duhua refused to surrender and were slain in battle. Guiting was nowhere to be found. River God and Yanji surrendered and swore Dao Heart vows to serve the 4-9 Immortal Palace for the rest of their lives. Not only that, but they also contributed most of their wealth to the 4-9 Immortal Palace in order to rebuild the Divine Source continent. Aside from that, some of the other forces of the Immortal King Palace had fled, some had surrendered, and some had committed heinous crimes, but no matter how powerful they were all cleansed by force. The overall power of the immortal King Palace had been weakened by close to half in just a month. However, all of the living beings on this continent knew that the 4-9 Immortal Palace was invincible as long as the white-robed exalted immortal still existed. Just when everyone thought that this was the end of the matter, a new policy was announced by the immortal King Palace, and it instantly shook the entire world. Depending on the development of the region, the amount of cultivation resources that the 4-9 Immortal Palace would have to submit to the Divine Source continent would be reduced by 80 to 90%. What kind of strength was this? It could be said that even the poorest areas could have a rich surplus. Countless leaders of the royal palaces raised their heads to look at the sky and couldn't help but sigh with emotion. The weather is going to change. It's just that the sky covered with dark clouds has turned into a clear sky. No one dared to believe that the 4-9 Immortal Palace would reduce their income by 80 to 90%. All living beings were greedy by nature, and all living beings viewed cultivation resources as extremely important. However, the 4-9 Immortal Palace, or in other words, the white-robed exalted immortal, was willing to give up all of these resources. What kind of determination did this require? These resources were most likely only enough to sustain the normal operations of the 4-9 Immortal Palace. Even if the white-robed exalted immortal wanted to win over the hearts of the people, he could reduce the amount of cultivation resources by 30%, and the vast majority of living beings would be extremely grateful and moved to tears. Regardless of whether it was the officials of the royal palaces or the commoners, none of them dared to believe that the white-robed exalted immortal would issue such a policy. This was completely beyond their imaginations of the future. All of a sudden, all of the powers on the Divine Source continent were extremely supportive of the white-robed exalted immortal's new regime. Immediately afterward, a series of government decrees that rocked the entire continent were issued. For example, over 1,000 cities that used to be empires on the continent became autonomous regions. To put it in simpler terms, the 4-9 Immortal Palace delegated power to them again, and they were no longer in charge of everything. The Immortal King ambassadors were now white-robed ambassadors. They were no longer representatives of the high and mighty white-robed exalted immortal. Instead, they were public servants who served the people. They were not allowed to force the people of the Divine Source continent to do anything they didn't want to do. All of the palaces opened up a reporting area for commoners. If the white-robed ambassadors were to commit any evil deeds, they could report them to the 4-9 Immortal Palace's Divine Judgment Palace for judgment and adjudication. This time, many of the kings of the royal mansions were really overwhelmed by the favor. The return of power, the white-robed ambassadors had become white-robed angels. If any of the palaces were illegally oppressing the mortals, they could also report them to the white-robed ambassadors, and the Divine Judgment Palace would also be adjudicated. Regardless of whether they were powerful beings or ordinary commoners, all of them realized that the white-robed exalted immortal really did want them to live better lives. Was this white-robed exalted immortal a god sent by the heavens to save them? The white-robed exalted immortal, Unlin, had really been deified. Not only were the people deified, but even the return to void stage exalted immortals were filled with reverence toward him. After the 4-9 Immortal Palace no longer interfered in the management of the regions, its status became even more transcendent, and it was like a superior version of the United Nations in the mortal world. The only difference was that this United Nations had absolute military might and executive power. Even though it didn't interfere in the management of the regions, it could command the entire world to obey. No matter who it was, they would choose to support a faction that had both strength and virtue. After that, some policies were enacted very smoothly. For example, they abolished kneeling and kowtowing, enacted all types of new laws, established the Women's Federation, and appointed Yan Shuqin as the chairperson of the Women's Federation. After that, the 4-9 Immortal Palace issued the two-word Heavenly Book, which everyone recited. Prosperity, democracy, civility, harmony, freedom, equality, justice, and the rule of law, no matter who it was, they would feel as if their entire body was enshrouded by the power of righteousness, thereby repelling all evil. This was most likely a type of power of laws that had been born under the auspices of all living beings in this world. Once triggered, its effects would be boundless, and it had already become part of their values and belief. Lin could see that a new world was gradually taking shape. Everything was so vibrant, and he felt a lot more at ease upon seeing this. Within the 4-9 Immortal Palace. I've done everything I could. I have a clear conscience after my trip to the Divine Source continent, so it's time for me to go back. Lin sipped his tea with a smile on his face. Yang Lingqian's hand faltered slightly as she looked at Lin. So soon? Why don't you stay a little longer? What will the 4-9 Immortal Palace do without you? She was the only person on this continent who knew the true identity of the white-robed Exalted Immortal. She knew that the white-robed Exalted Immortal and the demon King Dan Lu were both powerful beings from the outside world. Chapter 1388. Lin could see the reluctance in Yang Lingqian's eyes. He flicked Yang Lingqian's forehead with a smile. Don't be such a coward, okay? Without me, this world can still develop. The 4-9 Immortal Palace has over 100 Return to Void stage Exalted Immortals and 7 Exalted Immortals at the Return to Void Pinnacle stage. What are you afraid of? Yang Lingqian pursed her lips slightly, and she looked at Lin with her limpid eyes. But you're our pillar of support. Hey, you're already one of the 8 cabinets now. Grow up. Lin said with a serious expression. All right. Yang Lingqian nodded lightly. Even though she was reluctant, she knew that she wouldn't be able to keep Lin. The 8 cabinet ministers were the highest authority in the 4-9 Immortal Palace, and they were comprised of the River God, Yan Ji, Wang Chen, Sun Biyu, Luo Yan, Yan Shuqin, Yang Lingqian, and Peng Yuan. They were responsible for discussing and making decisions on important matters, and they were comprised of Exalted Immortals at the Return to Void Pinnacle stage. It could be said that Yang Lingqian was an adorable husky who had snuck into the crowd. She was very strange, but everyone respected her opinion. This was all because the white-robed Exalted Immortal was standing behind this husky. Yang Lingqian's father, Yang Jing, almost fell off his chair upon learning that his daughter had become one of the 8 ministers of the 4-9 Immortal Palace. He was so shocked that he almost fell off his chair, and he kowtowed to the portrait of the white-robed Exalted Immortal over and over again. He didn't expect that the little bit of good karma he had sown in the small city he managed would bring him such a shocking blessing. If this wasn't smoke rising from his ancestral grave, then what was? Yang Zheng repeatedly told his daughter to repay the white-robed Exalted Immortal through voice transmission talismans. Yang Lingqian also wanted to, but she didn't have a chance. The white-robed Exalted Immortal was extremely powerful, and he was extremely wealthy. He had power, wealth, and women. How could she possibly repay him? She was on the verge of tears. Even if she said that she would devote her body to him, Lin would not agree. After all, Lin had previously dismissed more than 600 beauties from all over the continent who had volunteered to sleep with him. Yang Jing heaved a resigned sigh upon hearing this. That's the best way to repay the white-robed Exalted Immortal is to serve the people of the 8 cabinet. The Divine Source continent had a new master. Mortals lived in peace and contentment, while cultivators were full of vigor. The revival of 10,000 sections. All the prodigies and goddesses of the continent appeared. Some of them had set their sights on the white-robed Exalted Immortal as their target, while others had their hearts set on him. In just 3 short months, the white-robed Exalted Immortal had become a household name. When his reputation was at its peak, The white-robed exalted immortal suddenly announced that he was going into seclusion to make a breakthrough. Also in seclusion with him was the equally renowned demon king of Danlu, Ishi. This incident shook the entire continent. No one knew how long Enlin was going to be in seclusion for, but the 4-9 Immortal Palace had already taken root in everyone's hearts. No matter how long Enlin would be in seclusion, the might of the 4-9 Immortal Palace would not diminish. On the heaven and earth altar of the Immortal King Palace, there stood a woman in a red dress. Before her were the renowned white-robed exalted immortal and demon king Danlu. I can't believe that 3 months have passed in the blink of an eye. Enlin lamented. You sound like 3 months is a long time. I was afraid that a year wouldn't be enough. Ishi rolled his eyes. Enlin shook his head. I was planning to finish this in 3 days at most. If it weren't for the system, he wouldn't have needed so much time. After that, the 4-9 Immortal Palace took a lot of time to manage and improve the order of the entire continent. Fortunately, the results were good and a new world was taking shape. She was triggered by Enlin's words again, and he paused momentarily before saying, "Let's activate the teleportation energy within our bodies and travel between the two worlds." The energy could only be maintained for a maximum of 1 year. However, they could choose to activate the energy earlier to return to the 4-9 Immortal Palace. Enlin and She activated the energy within their bodies at the same time, and a summoning power descended from the sky. Boom boom! A brilliant golden light enshrouded the two of them on the heaven and earth altar. Exalted Immortal Enlin, you have to come back often. I'll always be waiting for you at the 4-9 Immortal Palace. Yang Lingxian yelled in fear that Enlin wouldn't be able to hear her. Do your best and be an independent woman. Enlin encouraged with a smile. Yang Lingxian nodded, and tears welled up in her eyes as she looked at the disappearing white-robed figure. She didn't know when she would be able to see him again, and she couldn't help but take a few steps forward. Exalted Immortal Enlin, can I hug you? Her courage was almost completely sapped by that one sentence. However, her eyes were still red, and she stared at the man enshrouded in golden light with reluctance in her eyes. Enlin faltered momentarily before opening his arms with a smile. Yang Lingxian pounced toward Enlin like a baby swallow, and she only had a split second to experience the sensation of the white-robed figure disappearing into specks of golden light. She stood rooted to the spot and stared at the empty heaven and earth altar, at a complete loss for what to do. All of a sudden, she felt a burst of warmth radiating from her wrist. Yang Lingxian looked down at the immortal bracelet on her wrist, and a faint smile finally appeared on her face. I'll definitely work hard in my cultivation. If my cultivation base is too low, I probably won't even be able to live until you return. Within the white nectar sea, a massive vortex suddenly appeared. The formation tremored violently. An elderly man who was resting on a sea turtle suddenly opened his eyes with excitement in his eyes. You're back after only 3 months? I wonder if the mission was completed. He stepped forward, and his body instantly traversed over 50 kilometers before landing on the massive jellyfish in the depths of the white nectar sea. He stared intently at the glowing spatial gate between the two realms with both excitement and nervousness in his eyes. The heavenly lord of Tao and virtue's power had almost transcended the entire continent, but he was currently rubbing his hands together like a child. It could be said that the success or failure of this mission would determine the fate of the entire continent, so it was no wonder that he had become like this. Soon, 2 familiar figures appeared at the gate. Mr. Enlin, Ishi, I'm so glad you're both all right. The heavenly lord of Tao and virtue stroked his snowy white beard with an elated smile on his face. His eyes were squinted into slits, and he was grinning like an old baby. The two of them appeared to be in very good condition. Eliminating the possibility that they had encountered a life-or-death crisis, there was only one possibility. Master, we did it. Ishi chortled. Heavenly Lord of Tao and virtue, we were able to complete our mission. Lin also bowed with a faint smile. It's all thanks to Brother Lin's nature-defying combat prowess that we were able to slay that Tao integration stage super mighty figure. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to complete this mission. Ishii had no intention of claiming credit. Instead, he looked at Lin with reverence in his eyes. Ha ha! Great! The Heavenly Lord of Tao and Virtue chuckled. At this moment, a rainbow divine light suddenly flashed in the air above the seabed. An extremely pleasant voice sounded from the sky above. Why don't you come to my house of life and discuss things in detail? Lin felt extremely comfortable upon hearing this voice. Moreover, there was also an indescribable sense of closeness and intimacy. All right, let's go to Nuwa's room for a gathering. The Heavenly Lord of Tao and Virtue was in a very good mood, and a playful smile appeared on his face. Chapter 1389. Let's go to Nuwa's room? Lin's heart jolted upon hearing the Heavenly Lord of Tao and Virtue's words. He was initially very nervous and scared, but then he was suddenly very excited. Don't get the wrong idea, it's just that he has never seen this legendary figure. Now that he finally had a chance to meet her, he was very excited. There were many legends about Nuwa. The most famous ones were none other than Nuwa's mending of the heavens and Nuwa's creation of humans. Nuwa created humans on Earth using the highly intelligent human race on the Tai Chu continent as the model. Nuwa created humans from clay and placed them on Earth. To put it more accurately, Earth was created by Nuwa. Nuwa mended the heavens to mend the flaws in the Tai Chu continent's heavenly Tao. This was a mess that the humans of the Purple Star civilization had stirred up, but Nuwa had to clean up after them. However, after mending the heavens, she only managed to delay the heavenly Tao backlash, thereby giving the mighty figures some time to prepare. In other words, she had mended an incomplete sky. Now that the crisis had reappeared, the situation was becoming more and more dire. Nuwa had once again appeared on the world stage. Apparently, she was the leader of the heaven-mending sect, while the celestial Dharch was her second in command. They had been preparing to mend the heavens this entire time. Furthermore, it was said that the establishment of the celestial court had a lot to do with Nuwa. The Buddhist kingdom of the Western Paradise's victorious Buddha, Sun Wukong, had also been born from her heaven-mending stone. Lin thought to himself, this goddess of creation was extremely friendly toward the human race. Almost everything she did was beneficial to the human race. She was like a nursemaid to the human race, who would come and feed them from time to time. He really didn't understand why she was so good to the human race. A rainbow divine light pierced through the seawater for tens of thousands of meters before arriving at where Lin and the others were situated. Lin raised his head and could see an indistinct figure hovering directly above the white nectar sea. This was a lithe and graceful figure, and even looking at it from afar gave one a sense of tranquility. He didn't even have a chance to take a closer look before a burst of spatial power enshrouded his entire body. This was an extremely high-level spatial power. He didn't even have a chance to react before his vision warped and warped. The next time he opened his eyes, he was in a very stylish small wooden house. As soon as Lin took a breath, he felt an indescribably fresh air flowing through his entire body. It was as if all the impurities on his body had been washed away, and he felt unprecedentedly relaxed and comfortable. Not only that, but all the cells in his body seemed to come alive. His mind was 100 times more energetic, and he was content and carefree. Lin suddenly had a feeling that if he could breathe here for 10,000 years without doing anything, it would be super blissful. The wooden house's decorations were simple, but not simple. There was a simple painting, but the painting seemed to be a world that could be entered at any time. There was a simple tea table, and the tea in the small teacups was clear. The fragrance of the tea allowed him to determine that the tea leaves on the table were at least of the god level. The simple carved window exuded a divine aura. On the simple and exquisite dressing table, there were hundreds of flowers blooming under the moonlight in the mirror. The wind chimes were crisp and clear. When a gust of wind blew past, they would emit a simple yet pleasing sound that would intoxicate people. Yes, every item in the room seemed simple at first glance. But if one looked closely, they would all be able to discover something extraordinary about each item. Who would have thought that Nuwa would really let us into this room? The heavenly lord of Tao and virtue sat across from Enlin with a cheerful expression. He didn't forget to pour himself a cup of tea. It looked like this wasn't his first time here. After all, he had seen this house before. Ishi sat off to the side and looked around curiously. It was clear that this was also his first time here, just like Enlin. Enlin couldn't help but look toward the bed behind the light curtains. Then, his vision blurred and he went blind. "Mr. Enlin, there are some things that you shouldn't look at." A teasing yet extremely gentle voice sounded beside his ear. The voice was clear and natural, and it was extremely comfortable to listen to. Enlin turned around and finally regained his vision. He apologized awkwardly. "My apologies, Senior, I was being presumptuous. It's all right. Let me introduce myself. I am Nuwa." The woman slowly walked out from behind the curtains. Enlin raised his head to discover a woman in a colorful dress making her way toward him. She had a long, slender neck, and a pair of well-proportioned legs were revealed. Even her beautiful feet were exuding a sense of seductive allure. Enlin raised his head and looked up to discover that a woman in a colorful dress was making her way toward him. Enlin couldn't help but gulp. Wasn't Nuwa supposed to have the tail of a snake and the body of a human? Why was she showing herself to others in human form? Nuwa wasn't actually the most beautiful woman. In fact, she could only rank third among all the women he had seen. The first was Su Xiaolan, and the second was Chang Yi. Her facial features were so exquisite that they didn't have any flaws. Furthermore, they looked extremely natural. Although they weren't so mesmerizing that they would make others fall head over heels for her, they would still be able to move their hearts even after looking at her for 10,000 years. Her skin was white and flawless, and her divine body seemed to be made by the heavens. Standing in the world, she was the most beautiful scenery in the world. It was as if she was the darling of heaven and earth. This was a true goddess. A goddess that people couldn't even think of desecrating. And Lin thought of many things in that instant. Nuwa sat off to the side with a smile on her face as she appraised Enlin with curiosity in her eyes. "What, have you seen enough? What rank do you think my appearance is?" Nuwa asked with a smile. Enlin came back to his senses in that instant. His expression became even more awkward. It was as if his thoughts had been seen through. He only felt that it was very rude. He replied honestly, "You're more beautiful than all the women I've seen. Naturally, you're ranked first." "Tsk. How shameless!" A cold and hostile voice suddenly came from behind him. Enlin turned his head. When he saw who it was, his expression changed again. This was an exquisitely beautiful woman in a light black dress. Her long, straight, black hair hung down to her waist. She was looking at Enlin with a cold and disdainful expression. "Black Spirit Snake, you're here as well?" Enlin was shocked. He thought to himself, enemies really don't meet each other. It had only been a short while, and he had already encountered this killer again. Before Enlin had a chance to feel fear, another voice sounded. "Who are you calling shameless? Mr. Enlin is speaking the truth. Hurry up and pour tea for our guests." Nuwa chided. Black Spirit Snake. Enlin was ecstatic. Her Majesty Nuwa was such a good support. This time, all he had to do was suck up to Her Majesty Nuwa. What could this stinky snake do to him? Black Spirit Snake made her way over with an aggrieved expression before pouring tea for Nuwa, the heavenly lord of Tao and virtue, Ishi and Enlin. Black Spirit Snake almost couldn't control herself at the sight of that sly smile. The heavenly lord of Tao and virtue chuckled as if he had just witnessed a good show. Nuwa smiled. "All right, there are no outsiders here. Bring out your heavenly Tao fragment." Chapter 1390. Black Spirit Snake was brewing tea, and she turned to look at Enlin with her dark eyes. She knew about Enlin's mission to the Divine Source continent, and she was also very curious about what this so-called Heavenly Tao fragment looked like. Enlin placed his supreme-grade storage ring onto the table. The Heavenly Tao fragment inside has both a physical and an incorporeal form. It's very peculiar and unpredictable. Your Majesty Nuwa, make sure you don't let it get away. Nuwa smiled. Don't worry, I brought you to this cabin of life to release the Heavenly Tao fragment. I have the final say in this eternal space. When she said this, her face was full of confidence. It was quite clear that this cabin of life had its own unique characteristic. Enlin was relieved to hear this. He looked into his storage ring to find that the Heavenly Tao fragment was suspended in the air like a white crystal, exuding what appeared to be clouds and mist that revolved around its body. With a thought, he took out the Heavenly Tao fragment. Everything fell silent as soon as the fragment was brought out. The flowers in the dressing table disappeared, and the wind chimes outside the cabin stopped ringing. It was as if this fragment was the only thing left in this world. Both the Heavenly Lord of Tao and Virtue and Nuwa were momentarily dazed. They had both been entranced by the unique aura emanating from the Heavenly Tao fragment. It was also at this moment that the Heavenly Tao fragment flashed, and it became incorporeal before flying into the distance. Don't even think about getting away. Nuwa came to her senses in an instant, and she let loose a clear cry as she made an ancient seal with one hand. An ancient and boundless power emanated from the cabin, as if it had become its own world. The Heavenly Tao fragment crashed into the wall of the cabin, and its body shuddered violently as it revealed its true form. Nuwa flipped a hand over, and the Heavenly Tao fragment struggled violently, but it was unable to resist a certain power and slowly flew toward Nuwa's hand. She finally caught the Heavenly Tao fragment, and the reflection of the Heavenly Tao fragment appeared in her eyes. All of a sudden, the reflection of the fragment disappeared from her eyes. Instead, her eyes became emerald, as if she were caressing her own child. It is indeed the missing fragment of the Heavenly Tao. I can sense it, Nuwa murmured as she stroked it with her slender fingers in an extremely gentle manner, as if she was caressing her own child. Black Spirit Snake leaned against the table and propped her chin in her hands as she stared at the Heavenly Tao fragment with an entranced expression. It's so beautiful. I really want to look at it forever. Won't you be able to look at it every day after it fuses with the heavenly axiom? Nuwa laughed. Black Spirit Snake pouted. That's different. Enlin was a little surprised to see Black Spirit Snake like this. This was the first time he had seen Black Spirit Snake behaving like a little girl, and he felt like the contrast was quite stark. The Heavenly Lord of Tao and Virtue stroked his beard and said, with the Heavenly Tao fragment, the Heavenly Tao's flaw has already been fixed. We've also prepared quite a lot of materials to mend the heavens. Now I'm still missing the most important link, which is the power of Tao that's lacking in the Heavenly Tao. Nuwa nodded before turning to Enlin and Ishi with a warm smile on her face. This is all thanks to your efforts, Enlin and Ishi. Come, tell me what happened to you guys on the Divine Source continent. The two of them recounted everything that had happened on the Divine Source continent to Nuwa. Nuwa's expression shifted slightly upon hearing that Feng Wuya had already progressed to the Tao integration stage. No wonder all of the powerful beings we sent out failed and perished. There really are living beings who have progressed to the Tao integration stage. Black Spirit Snake was also a little astonished as she stared at Enlin. You've only just progressed to the return to void stage not long ago, but you're already able to defeat Tao integration stage super mighty figures? A smug smile appeared on Enlin's face. What's so strange about that? I'm quite proficient in battle. How about a sparring match? Black Spirit Snake was itching to have a go. No. Enlin immediately refused. Black Spirit Snake. Enlin wasn't an idiot. Feng Wuya was a very weak Tao integration stage super mighty figure, but Black Spirit Snake was a mighty figure who could match the legendary battling Buddha and was Nuwa's right-hand man. How could they possibly be on the same level? Black Spirit Snake was only looking for an opportunity to beat him up. Alright, Little Black, stop messing around. Mr. Enlin, please continue. Nuwa still wanted to hear the story, and she turned to Enlin with a teary expression. Enlin was a little embarrassed by her gaze, and he continued to recount his experiences on the Divine Source continent. He had already obtained the fragment of the heavenly Tao, so why was Her Majesty Nuwa still so curious about what had happened there? Enlin also told her about how he had established the 4-9 Immortal Palace, liberated the oppressed female cultivators, re-established order on the continent, and reformed the governing system. Nuwa listened with rapt attention. She also told her about Enlin's heroic feat of mending the heavens with a single sword strike. Nuwa looked at Enlin and the evil-slaying sword on Enlin's back with a hint of surprise on her face. Your sword looks so special. Can I touch it? Enlin's body shuddered upon hearing this, and he immediately grabbed onto the sword on his back, before injecting his divine weapon origin energy into it. Little Xie let out a soft moan of comfort. Enlin heaved a sigh of relief as a smile appeared on his face. Nuwa and the Heavenly Lord of Tao and Virtue were all dumbstruck. I'm sorry, Senior Nuwa, my sword spirit is very afraid of strangers, so I won't be able to touch it, Enlin said with an apologetic expression. A warm smile appeared on Nuwa's face. That's all right. Enlin continued with his story, and he turned to Nuwa with a curious expression. Your Majesty Nuwa, if I want to return to the Divine Source continent, what do I have to do to get there? Nuwa stretched out her slender fingertip, and a golden light flashed. A golden crystal appeared in front of her fingertip. Enlin's expression immediately shifted upon seeing the golden crystal and sensing the familiar energy fluctuations emanating from it. That's a Golden Realm Essence Crystal. Could it be that I only need Golden Realm Essence Crystals to enter? 3 Golden Realm Essence Crystals are only the base. You also need to refine a Realm Stone. It's exactly because Realm Stones are extremely rare that the Heavenly Lord of Tao and I have only given our subordinates a dozen or so opportunities to enter, Nuwa explained. Enlin's heart jolted upon hearing this. A single Golden Realm Essence Crystal was already worth over 1,000,000 Spirit Stones. It looked like the price to enter was indeed a little high. However, Nuwa looked at the Heavenly Tao fragment and said, that's not necessarily the case anymore. Enlin's interest was immediately piqued. One had to realize that his 4-9 Immortal Palace was still there. Nuwa explained, because the Heavenly Tao fragment has been retrieved, the rift in the sky has been mended, and a Tao integration stage super mighty figure has been born on that continent. The level of the world has become higher, and all of these changes have made that world even more perfect. Thanks to these improvements, the passageway between the two worlds has also become more stable. Perhaps the passageway between the two worlds will become a normal passageway in the near future. Enlin heaved a sigh of relief upon hearing this. It was fine as long as they could get back to that continent. Nuwa put the Heavenly Tao fragment away into the flower bracelet on her wrist with a smile. Enlin, Ishi, I should also thank you for retrieving the Heavenly Tao fragment. I'll give each of you a divine item. Chapter 1391. Enlin was ecstatic upon seeing this. A present from Nuwa had to be extremely valuable. Thank you, Your Majesty Nuwa. Enlin immediately extended a salute. He would be a fool not to take advantage of such an opportunity. Thank you, Your Majesty Nuwa. Ishi was also very elated. Here, this myriad soul holy herb is yours. You can use it to refine pills. Nuwa handed a divine rank herb to Ishi. Ishi accepted the herb with a wide grin on his face, and his eyes were about to disappear. Enlin, this heavenly stone is imbued with my chaotic power and can defend against attacks from Tao integration stage mighty figures. You can also use it as a rock to inflict lethal damage on your enemies. It can be used a total of 10 times, so it's a very good life-saving treasure. Nuwa handed a gray stone to Enlin. Those who didn't know what it was might think that it was a random rock that had been picked up off the street. However, Enlin could sense extremely terrifying energy fluctuations imbued within the stone. "Thank you, Your Majesty Nuwa." Enlin repressed the excitement in his heart as he accepted the heavenly stone. This was the first time he had received a gift from a god of creation. He didn't know how powerful it was, but he could find an unlucky bastard to test it out on next time. "Little Black, pour Enlin another cup of tea," Nuwa instructed with a warm smile. Black Spirit Snake's expression darkened as she continued to pour tea for Enlin. Never would Enlin have thought that the domineering Black Spirit Snake would pour tea for him in such an obedient manner. This was a very strange and exhilarating feeling. After that, they chatted about other things at the tea table. Nuwa even asked Enlin if he was interested in joining the Heaven Mending sect. Enlin then turned her down in a euphemistic manner again. Come to think of it, this was quite interesting. The Heaven Mending sect and the Heaven Crushing sect had both invited him over. Was he really that popular? Half a day later, Nuwa escorted Enlin out of the cabin of life. Enlin walked through the spatial gate to find that he had already arrived above a blue sky and a picturesque floating continent. It was a very familiar place. It was the campus where he had lived for nearly 5 years. "Enlin, my young friend, enjoy your graduation ceremony." On the other side of the portal, Goddess Nviwa smiled gently and waved her hand. Whoosh! The portal shrank. The goddess of creation was nowhere to be seen. Graduation ceremony? Enlin was stunned. At this moment, the sound of fireworks and the cheers of the students came from afar. Holy shit! I graduated? Enlin was given a massive fright. Only at this moment did he suddenly realize that more than 3 months had already passed since he had entered the Divine Source continent. Time had truly passed far too quickly. Enlin became a little melancholic. He hadn't prepared himself at all, and he had graduated just like that. You always say that graduation is so far away, and in the blink of an eye, we go our separate ways on the white stone square of Xiaoxian United University. Nearly 10,000 fifth-year graduates were gathered here. All of them wore white Taoist robes with red borders. This was their graduation uniform. This was the first time that all of the students had worn such a uniform. The male students were all handsome and dashing, while the female students were all adorable and adorable. This was a rare sight on the campus. Principal Wang Xianyu gave a speech on stage. All of the students were listening with rapt attention. As expected, today was the last day of their reunion on the campus. From tomorrow onward, they would be graduating students of the United University of Cultivation. However, none of the students were very excited as they felt like something was missing. I just want to see War God Enlin one last time before I graduate. Why can't I even fulfill this small wish of mine? A female student said with a forlorn expression. Sigh, Enlin is a man of great ambition, so it's understandable that he doesn't appear on the campus, a male student said with a hint of disappointment on his face. That's right, they were all disappointed that the legendary man didn't appear at the graduation ceremony to celebrate their last day together. That's all right. If you want to see him, you can go to the Celestial Court or the 4-9 Immortal Sect. You'll have a chance to see him there. At this moment, within the first class of students. Don't worry, classmate Xiaolan. Perhaps Enlin will be back soon? Su Qianyun wore a loose Taoist robe, and she clumsily offered words of consolation as she patted the female student beside her on the shoulder. Who's worried about him? I'm just angry. He doesn't even tell me what he's doing. When he comes back, he's going to kneel on the diamond lava durian. An angry pink appeared on Su Xiaolan's face, and she looked up into the sky as she spoke, as if she really was hoping that he would suddenly come back at this moment. That's right, why would our classmate Xiaolan be worried about Enlin? A playful smile appeared on Xian Yuancheng's handsome face. When Enlin suddenly disappeared, she went to ask everyone in the celestial court, from the 5 emperors to all the immortals, just so she could ferret out Enlin and give him a good beating. How is she going to appease her anger if she doesn't give him a good beating? An expression of extreme anticipation appeared on his face as he spoke. Su Xiaolan. Now, let us invite the outstanding student representatives of the Celestial Court and Xiuxian United University to deliver a graduation speech. Vice Principal Yu Hua announced. Close to 10,000 students applauded in unison. Some of the students who were feeling a little down also perked up a little. Upon hearing this, Su Xiaolan stepped into the air and landed on the platform. Her white robe was like the clouds with fiery red edges. She wore an intricate Taoist robe, and she didn't put on any facial expressions, but she was already as beautiful as a celestial maiden. Su Xiaolan's entrance was very simple, but it still stunned countless students and teachers alike. She had perfectly integrated her true dragon bloodline and vermilion bird bloodline, and both her disposition and appearance had become even more regal and holy, as if she were a high and mighty holy maiden. Everyone was tempted to look at her, but at the same time, they didn't dare to approach her. Only her friends who were familiar with her knew that Su Xiaolan hadn't changed in the slightest. She was gentle when she needed to be, and explosive when she needed to be. She was still the adorable little celestial maiden of the past. Su Xiaolan looked up into the sky again before grumbling in a quiet voice, "Sai, you're not here, so I have to do all this manual labor. I just want to be an ordinary little chef." In Enlin's absence, she was the most outstanding student, so she naturally took over Enlin's position and delivered the student representative's speech. Greetings, esteemed leaders, teachers, and dear students. I am Su Xiaolan from Class 1. Everyone says that the path of cultivation is a long one, and 5 years is but a drop in the ocean. However, these 5 years are destined to be unforgettable for all of us. We've had a warm and beautiful daily cultivation life, but we've also experienced thrilling battles. Su Xiaolan was just delivering her graduation speech when she suddenly raised her head and looked up into the distance. An extremely moving smile appeared on her face, and all of her previous worries and anger were instantly erased. The only emotion she was feeling was joy. Her eyes had already curved into crescent moons. You're back. Chapter 1392. Who's back? All of the teachers and students thought of one person at the same time upon seeing Su Xiaolan suddenly burst out with such a joyful smile on her face. It's War God Enlin. It must be classmate Enlin. Ah, my God, En. Where is he? Where is he? All of the teachers and students began to stir as they looked up into the sky. A white figure approached from afar. He had a handsome face and a huge black brick. That's right, it was still the same as before. Cheers and whistles erupted from the crowd. This was a much more enthusiastic scene than when the principal was giving a speech. Enlin was also startled by the enthusiastic student. He then greeted them with a joyful expression. "Hi everyone, long time no see, I've missed you." Right at this moment, his heart suddenly thumped as a sense of danger welled up in his heart. A black dot was flying toward him. Enlin instinctively reached out to grab it to find that it was an intricate white Taoist robe with red edges. "What are you talking about? Don't disturb the order of the graduation ceremony. Hurry up and change your clothes and listen to me." An extremely domineering and arrogant voice suddenly sounded. Enlin's body trembled, and his previous domineering aura instantly disappeared. He hurriedly replied, "Sorry? Classmate Xiaolan, I'll change right away." His body shook as he spoke, and he instantly changed into his outfit. Then, he obediently stood among the students of Class 1 and listened to the lecture with an obedient expression. All of the teachers and students couldn't help but burst into laughter upon seeing this. In the entire school, the only one who could deal with Enlin was probably the woman on the stage. Su Xiaolan tried her best not to laugh upon seeing Enlin like this. She then began her speech as the student representative with a serious expression. As for letting Lin speak? That's impossible. You can't just push away this kind of opportunity and have it whenever you want. Since you're late, then you'll just have to stay down there. Su Xiaolan's tone of voice became much lighter. Perhaps the boulder hanging over her heart had finally been lifted. She had once again become the little fairy with a bright smile that could warm people's hearts. Lin looked at the beautiful woman on the stage and felt a sense of satisfaction in his heart. He felt that his experience at Xiaoxian United University was finally without any regret. Not only did he not have any regrets, but the students also had no regret. The goal they were striving for, the person they admired the most, was now standing on the white stone square, taking the oath and graduating together with them. That was great. After Su Xiaolan finished her speech, the graduation ceremony entered the next stage. She walked back into the crowd and looked at Lin with an unfriendly gaze. Xiaolan, let me explain, Lin urged. All right, you have to give me a good explanation tonight. I'll use the vermilion bird mirror, but if you're lying, then you can kneel on the diamond lava durian. Su Xiaolan harumphed coldly. Lin, Xiaolan was becoming more and more difficult to deal with. She had even mastered the vermilion bird mirror's lie detector. How about he smash the vermilion bird mirror first, then tell Xiaolan that the vermilion bird mirror was accidentally damaged? After the students' speeches, the Celestial Court Immortal began his Tao lecture. In the past, only celestial immortals at the Return to Void Pinnacle stage attended this event. However, the Celestial Arch was here in person today. His lecture was concise and easy to understand, but it was imbued with the intent of the Great Tao. Regardless of the cultivation base of the students, they would all be able to attain enlightenment from his lecture. Even Lin and Su Xiaolan were very enlightened by his lecture. Finally, a golden graduation certificate descended from the sky and landed in the hands of each student. Each certificate had the corresponding information of each student. This was a symbol of an experience, as well as a symbol of glory. The cover of the graduation certificate was engraved with the words, "The United University of Cultivation Graduation Certificate" in gold. The words were written in flamboyant calligraphy, exuding a sense of pride and arrogance. The words, "Protect the Kingdom of the Nine States, Revive the Human Race," were engraved on the back of the certificate. Xiaoxian United University was a school of the entire Kingdom of the Nine States, and prodigies came from all over the continent. It was no longer a school or sect that could control the entire human race. Lin flipped open his graduation certificate to see the face of a young man. His face was filled with a hint of fear and unease, but also a hint of yearning. Lin came to his senses. Wasn't this a photo taken when he first entered the university? How did it end up on his graduation certificate? Su Xiaolan gloated at the sight of Lin's dumbstruck expression. When we took our graduation photos, you were nowhere to be seen, so we had to use the photo you took when you first came in. Lin smiled helplessly. That's not a bad thing. I look back at myself in the past, and only now do I realize how much I've grown in the past 5 years. Su Xiaolan pinched Lin's face with a slender hand. You're getting more and more shameless. You've become invulnerable in just 5 years. Lin didn't back down, and he pinched Su Xiaolan's delicate face with an amused expression. You're getting more and more daring. You dare to tease me in public? Do you think I, Lin, don't dare to show off my power? Let go. Su Xiaolan struggled. I'm not letting go, he. Lin used the same method that he used on little Xie to knead Su Xiaolan's face into all kinds of shape. He then unsheathed his dragon sparrow sword. Lin apologized in public with a humiliated expression. Big brother, let's take a photo together. A voice suddenly sounded from behind him. Lin turned to discover a cultured and refined man with a feather fan in his hand looking at him. Beside him, there was a young girl with a sweet smile, a cold and gorgeous big-breasted girl, and a tall and sturdy man. Sure. Anlin replied with a smile. The four of them were none other than Zhong Yongyan, Miao Tian, Sun Xinglian, and Luo Zipping. He and the four of them happily took a photo together using photographic crystals, one for each of them. After all, they had graduated, so graduation photos were naturally the most enjoyable thing for graduate. Immediately afterward, Anlin took a photo with Liu Debao, who had become tan from cultivating the divine sun technique. When Liu Debao first entered the university, he was at the bottom of his grade. Now, however, he was already an exceptional student of the 10th stage Dao body. This also dispelled Anlin's suspicions that Liu Debao wasn't perfected Master Yu Ding's biological son. Thinking back, Liu Debao was Anlin's first formidable opponent on his path of cultivation. Anlin and I were evenly matched. He could probably brag about this for many years. Zhao Huayin also came to take a photo with Anlin, and even said that he wanted to take a photo with Dabai. Anlin felt like he had ulterior motives. However, Anlin wasn't afraid that Dabai would be snatched away. Dabai was now dead set on him. He woke up Dabai, who was sleeping soundly in the attic, and they took a photo together. Snap! Dabai's adorable appearance was recorded in Zhao Huayin's photographic crystal. Then, Su Xiaolan, Xianyuan Cheng, and Su Qianyun also took a photo with Anlin. Anlin and Su Xiaolan were like a celestial couple, and they rode on Dabai lovingly. Su Qianyun stood off to the side, and she gently stroked Dabai's head with a breathtaking smile on her face. Xianyuan Cheng stood on the other side of Dabai, and his back was against Dabai. His perfect profile was revealed, and he turned toward the camera with a gentle and warm expression. Snap! The image froze in this instant. Anlin had graduated. Chapter 1393. After the photo spree, everyone carefully took care of their photographic crystals. The photographic crystals contained their memories of the people and events that had taken place at this school. Many of the students also received a photo of themselves with Anlin, and they couldn't help but cheer with excitement. There were simply too many students who wanted to take a photo with Anlin, and they couldn't hold back their enthusiasm, so they could only take a photo with him one class at a time. Thus, he left his mark in every single class of the first year. As the sun set, Anlin returned to the familiar dorm room. Giant Anlin, you're finally back. I've missed you so much. Tina flew toward Anlin excitedly and spread open her arms before giving him an Adam's apple thrusting into his neck. Ow! Little Na, be gentle. Anlin couldn't stand Little Na's way of hugging, and he grabbed onto her waist before placing her onto his other hand. Tina knelt on Anlin's palm and held onto Anlin's thumb with her slender hands as she asked in an urgent voice, Giant Anlin, where have you been these past few months? Why didn't you take me with you? What have you been doing? Can you tell me? She was extremely curious about all things that were new and unknown. This was why she liked to run around with Anlin, and she was also very eager to learn about all kinds of things that were fun to do. Don't be in such a hurry, I'll tell you later. Anlin poked Tina's cheek with a doting smile. He made his way to the window sill to bask in the sunlight. I haven't been back for 3 months. Are you guys not going to say anything? Welcome back, Master, Xiao Hong replied. Welcome back, Master, Little Gu replied nonchalantly. Anlin, you're being so perfunctory? Xiao Hong, hee. Anlin's lips twitched. What's wrong with you guys? Did I do something wrong? Xiao Hong didn't say anything and continued to photosynthesize. Has Master forgotten? 3 months ago, you pretended to be about to die and tricked us into dancing? Xiao Gu asked slowly. Anlin suddenly remembered that incident and said in shock, F***CK, it's been 3 months and you still remember that incident? You sure are forgetful, Xiao Hong said sweetly. You have to know that girls are all very vengeful. Xiao Gu humphed and said, especially when a certain someone has done something wrong and doesn't even know how to comfort them. Anlin was dumbfounded. This. He didn't even know how to coax Xiaolan, so how was he supposed to coax his pet beast? Right. And Lin's eyes lit up. Let me show you a big treasure. His storage ring lit up as he spoke, and he pulled something out from within. Xiaohong, this is the Golden Divine Sun Immortal Pill that I gave you. It contains extremely rich power of the sun. Xiao Gu, this is the Primordial Myriad Poison Spike that I gave you. It's a mid-grade immortal artifact, and it's very effective when paired with your poison powder. Ah, thank you, Master. You're very nice, Xiaohong said in her sweet voice as she planted a small kiss on the back of Enlin's hand. Long live Master. Xiao Gu was elated. A faint smile appeared on Enlin's face. You don't know how to coax girls? That's not a problem. As long as you have money, there's no girl that you can't coax. By the way, where did little Tian go? Enlin looked around and was a little unaccustomed to not seeing his ass-kisser, Shuizhantian. He and little Lang went to the holy glacial realm to search for treasures. Woof! Dabai replied. Search for treasures in the holy glacial realm? Enlin was a little perplexed. What treasures could there be in that godforsaken place? Didn't all the snow maidens leave there? It's like this. A month ago, the great Tao of heaven and earth suddenly resonated in that place, and it appeared that a super-powerful being was attempting the Tao integration stage deep within the holy glacial realm. Furthermore, he succeeded, and he was no ordinary Tao integration stage super-mighty figure. Instead, he seemed to be imbued with an extremely terrifying Tao realm that defied the natural order. It's exactly because of this that the environment in that area underwent a peculiar change. Not only did it become even colder, but strange living beings that were extremely resistant to the cold were also born there. Think about it, Big Brother, and wouldn't it be especially easy for rare and precious treasures to appear in a place like this? Woof! Dabai urged. Enlin nodded slightly before his brows furrowed slightly. If strange living beings can be born there, then strange treasures can also be born there. However, I feel like little Tian went there to see that super-powerful being with the intent to crush the heavens, right? A pained expression appeared on Dabai's face. Big Brother, and I think so too. You have to look on the bright side. Little Tian actually still loves you, woof. Enlin was completely confused. Was there something wrong with Dabai's words? Why was he acting as if he had been cheated on? He tried to contact little Tian via voice transmission talisman, only to be cut off by a strange power. The holy glacial lands have already formed their own world, so they have the power to cut off voice transmission talismans. Woof! Dabai continued. Alright, we'll go find them later. Enlin heaved a faint sigh. He turned to look at the little fairy on his shoulder with a smile. Now, let's take care of little Na and give her a present. Huh? I also have a present? What present? Little Na's emerald green eyes shone with a dazzling light, and it was clear that she was very much looking forward to it. A seed. Enlin's storage ring flashed, and a translucent little ball appeared in the air. Heaven and earth instantly fell silent, as if this little ball were the only thing left in this world. Tina's eyes widened as she stared blankly at the seed before her. Xiaohong, Little Gu, and Dabai also turned to look at the seed with astonishment etched on their faces. Even those who didn't know much could tell that this seed was no ordinary seed. It was more valuable than even a divine tool, much less an immortal tool. Giant Enlin, what is this? It's far too valuable. Tina's heart raced as she stared at the seed, and she didn't dare to accept it. This is a seed of the realm core. It is a seed born from the heavenly Tao and contains the vitality of the world. It possesses unfathomable power, and as far as I know, it can transform or repair the realm core. Hence, you're the only one who can use this. Take it. Enlin handed the seed to Tina. Tina carefully accepted the seed before looking up with a smile. Thank you, Giant Enlin. Thank you for giving me such a precious treasure. I'm your master, so of course I'll think of you first. Unlin smiled warmly as he patted the little fairy's head. Debai's mouth gaped open. Unlin was also his master, so why didn't Unlin express anything to him? Was it because he wasn't trying to act cute? Of all the pets present, he seemed to be the only one who hadn't received a gift. Unlin smiled. Let's go to the divine mirror world and plant the seed. Giant Unlin wants to come as well. Tina grabbed onto Unlin's ear. All right, Unlin smiled. I want to go as well. I haven't been to Little Na's world yet, woof. Debai chimed in. Sure. I can transfer other living beings aside from my master now. Tina giggled. Xiaohong, Little Gu, you two can come as well. Xiaohong looked up at the final ray of sunlight disappearing into the clouds. All right, let's take a look at Little Na's world. I'm looking forward to it. Little Gu spread open her wings and flew over to Little Na. Chapter 1394. Unlin, Tina, Debai, Xiaohong, and Little Gu decided to enter the divine mirror world together. The light of two realms unleashed by Tina enshrouded all of her friends. In the next instant, an enormous spatial power swept forth, and heaven and earth suddenly transformed. Unlin came to his senses to find that he had already arrived in an extremely prosperous city. Wow! So many big houses! Xiaohong hid in Unlin's pocket and let loose a delicate cry of surprise as she looked around with her bright red head. Countless skyscrapers that were several hundred meters tall appeared before their eyes. A series of vibrant holographic projections, as well as a series of throngs of people and hovering vehicles, were all telling of the prosperity and civilization of this human city. Humans are the most creative and intelligent race. They look a little like the Purple Star civilization now. Little Gu spoke in a slow voice. Tina pursed her lips and put her hands on her hip. I hope they don't go down the same path as the Purple Star civilization. I am the heavens. If they poke a hole in the sky, who knows what will happen to me? Unlin smiled. You're a god of creation, so you should be fearless. What are you afraid of? Tina replied in an indifferent voice. That's what the Tai Chu continent's heavenly Tao thought 10,000 years ago. Unlin. Thinking about it that way, it made sense that the heavenly Tao would retaliate against the humans of the Purple Star civilization. He couldn't just let the creature he had nurtured stab him and not be angry at all, could he? Let's go and plant the seed first. Tina waved a sleeve through the air, and another streak of light flashed past. In the next instant, they arrived at an immortal paradise with extremely rich vital energy. This is the core of the world we created together, right? Unlin looked around. That's right. Tina's delicate, jade-like feet strode over to a garden with hundreds of flowers in full bloom, and she asked with a dainty smile, Look at this, isn't it beautiful? This immortal paradise had already undergone a massive transformation. There were vibrant flowers, clear rivers, water wheels, and mountains that were full of vitality. All kinds of spirit-grade treasures could be seen everywhere. The cute little critters were roaming about in the forest, and they were somewhat afraid as they sized up the creatures that appeared. Everything in the surroundings was emitting an extremely dense energy fluctuation. How beautiful! Unlin nodded sincerely. The spiritual aura here was terrifyingly high, and it was filled with natural vitality. It was a good place to relax and cultivate. Woof woof! Debai excitedly chased after a big purple fire cat, suddenly pounced on the big cat and laughed, Beauty, you are so sexy. Debai, don't bully the kittens. They're all my pets, Tina warned. Hearing this, Debai reluctantly let go of Unlin. Unlin was puzzled. Don't you like beauties with fair skin, slender waists, and long legs? I'm trying to change my orientation. Woof. Debai grimaced in pain. That's not a reason for you to act like a pervert. Tina bent down and poked Debai's head with a serious expression. Debai hurriedly nodded in acknowledgement of his mistake before asking Goddess Tina whether he could eat the fruits around them with a fawning expression. After learning that he could eat any of the spirit fruits in the paradise, Dabai was as ecstatic as a lackey of a goddess, and he immediately went off to pick the fruits. Look at him. It's as if he's never seen spirit fruits before. Unlin shook his head with a resigned expression. But there are so many treasures in Little Na's world, Xiao Hong said in her sweet voice. The environment here is very good, so photosynthesis must be very enjoyable. But there are so many treasures in Little Na's world, Xiao Hong said in her sweet voice. The environment here is very good, so photosynthesis must be very enjoyable. Xiao Gu chimed in, I have a sister who is the goddess of creation. Little Gu chimed in, I have a sister who is the goddess of creation. You can come here more often if you like. Tina was a little embarrassed by the compliment, and a faint blush appeared on her flawless features. Let's plant the seed first. She spread open her semi-transparent golden wings and flew to the side of a mirror-like lake. She used a spell technique to dig a hole in the soil and carefully placed the seed of the realm core into the soil. Then, she covered it with soil and watered it with some of the lake's spirit water. Unlin was a little speechless. I told you to plant the seed of the realm core, but are you really going to plant it like a normal seed? What else? Seeds are meant to be planted, Little Gu replied with an innocent expression. Unlin, shouldn't planting an immeasurably valuable treasure be done in a more ritualistic manner? He felt like this was too casual and didn't reflect the treatment that the seed of the realm core should receive. The procedures and methods were too simple. Tina seemed to have guessed what Unlin was thinking, and she explained with a smile. The fragment of the realm core has completely fused with this world. Which means that no matter where the seed of the realm core is planted, as long as it's in this world, it has already been planted on the realm core of the divine mirror world. Unlin instantly understood upon hearing this. I'm going to use time acceleration now. Tina spread open her arms, and a divine light enshrouded Unlin, Dabai, Xiao Hong, and Little Gu. At the same time, a peculiar ripple proliferated throughout heaven and earth. Everything in this world began to speed up in that instant. Flowers bloomed and wilted at a rate that was discernible to the naked eye, and life and death became extremely frequent in that instant. So impressive. To think that Little Na has this kind of ability. Xiao Hong was astonished again. Gulp. The fruit in front of me is getting fatter and fatter, woof. Dabai swallowed involuntarily as he stared at the spirit fruit before him. As expected of the goddess of creation, she's even able to use the most miraculous power of time with such proficiency. Little Gu also felt like her horizons had been broadened greatly as she looked around at the changes taking place around her with amazement. This was the first time they had seen Tina use time acceleration, and all of them were astonished. At the location where the seed of the realm core had been planted, the soil began to tremor. It's coming out, it's coming out! Unlin exclaimed excitedly. What is it? Tina was also very curious. It's not a small sapling, right? Xiao Hong speculated. It could also be a small insect. It might not necessarily be a plant, Little Gu chimed in. Unlin's expression darkened. I'm planting the seed of the realm core, which is an extremely high-class item. How could it possibly grow something like that? As he spoke, the seed had already broken out of its shell. So beautiful! Tina's eyes shimmered as she stared blankly at the scene before her. A crystalline black and white lotus flower had blossomed in the soil. Black and white intertwined, and it rotated gently and endlessly, imbued with the true intent of harmony and harmony. For some reason, Unlin couldn't help but feel a sense of familiarity at the sight of this lotus flower. The lotus flower grew larger and larger, first growing to a dozen or so centimeters in size before growing to 4 or 5 meters in size. It shone with a dazzling divine light. Immediately afterward, something materialized at the center of the lotus flower. It was the shape of a human. He wore a black robe, and his eyes were deathly white, from which a domineering aura emanated. Unlin was astonished. Feng Wuya? That's right, The man standing at the center of the lotus flower was none other than immortal King Feng Wuya. I planted a seed, and I reaped a Feng Wuya? Chapter 1395. Anlin was completely dumbstruck. Never would he have thought that he would be able to plant a Feng Wuya. How did I grow a man? An expression of surprise appeared on Tina's face. She had already cancelled the time acceleration. To put it more accurately, the subconscious consciousness of this world had voluntarily stopped the acceleration of time and entered a special state. It was as if it had been waiting for this moment. Regardless of whether it was a normal living being or a god of creation, all of them were treated the same. No, this isn't a human. Tina's eyes turned murky, and a white light tore through the murky light, as if she could see through time and all things. A piece of information immediately appeared in her mind. This is the guardian of the realm nurtured by the seed of the realm core. It is a pseudo-life puppet created from a living being that the seed was familiar with when it was alive. However, it is imbued with the power of the seed of the realm core, which is why it resembles a real life form. Anlin was enlightened upon hearing Tina's explanation. The seed of the realm core was nurtured by a fragment of the heavenly Tao, and the fragment of the heavenly Tao had fused with Feng Wuya before, so Feng Wuya was the person that the seed of the realm core was most familiar with. The lotus flower blossomed, and Feng Wuya's body became more and more substantial. Finally, he opened his eyes, and a series of black lotuses blossomed around him as the divine Tao aura of heaven and earth proliferated outward. No way. He's already at the Tao integration stage, and his aura is even more terrifying than Feng Wuya's. Anlin's eyes widened with incredulity as he stared at the man before him. The man made his way over to Tina before half kneeling to the ground and bowing his head. "Master." Tina faltered slightly upon hearing this before realizing that this man was merely a highly intelligent puppet in a human body. He possessed power and intelligence, but he had no thoughts of his own. She nodded in a gentle voice. "You may rise." Feng Wuya stood up and stood off to the side in silence. "Big brother Feng, do you remember me?" Anlin made his way over to him with a curious expression. Feng Wuya continued to look straight ahead. Anlin suddenly realized that he seemed to have forgotten something upon seeing Feng Wuya's expression. He thought about it for a moment before coming to a sudden realization. "Crap. I promised to clarify that you weren't born impotent, but I forgot to do that." Feng Wuya. Anlin felt a little guilty. At the very least, the other party had left behind his last words, but he had only agreed to it. In the end, he had forgotten about it. It was indeed a little disrespectful to this formidable opponent. This is the enemy that giant Anlin fought in that world? A mischievous smile suddenly appeared on Tina's face as she looked at the man before her. "It's a pity that he only has the appearance and power, but he's already a new pseudo-intelligent life form. How about I change his appearance?" "What do you want to do?" Anlin suddenly had a bad feeling. "I don't like having Master's former enemy become my slave, even if he's just a puppet with a physical appearance but no thoughts of his own," Tina replied. "So?" Anlin asked. "Hence, I don't want this Feng Wuya's appearance. In other words, I want to completely change this puppet's appearance." Tina harumphed coldly. Anlin was surprised and doubtful. "This is a world guardian nurtured by the seed of the realm core, can you even change it?" Tina chuckled. "The seed of the realm core is nothing. Don't forget that I'm the master of the entire divine mirror world." As soon as these words came out, a supreme might descended from the sky. Regardless of whether it was Anlin or Da Bai and the other beast pets, all of them could sense a paramount aura. Tina's golden hair danced as she hovered in the air, bathed in boundless divine light. She pointed a finger at Feng Wuya, and heaven and earth began to change. An invisible power seemed to be imbued with a paramount command, and it instantly took effect on Feng Wuya's body. Feng Wuya's body began to change. His skin gradually became fair and smooth, his black hair became as smooth as ink, and his body became more petite and delicate. At the same time, his features gradually became more beautiful, and his chest gradually began to swell. Both Enlin and Dabai drew a sharp intake of breath upon seeing this. Little Na. You! Enlin's mouth gaped open. The mighty Feng Wuya had been transformed by Tina into an exquisitely beautiful woman with fair skin, a slender waist, and a pair of long, slender legs. He! From now on, you're Feng Wuya. Tina spoke with a dainty smile. The beauty knelt on one knee and bowed respectfully. Her voice was soft and charming with a touch of heroic spirit. Enlin, Dabai, Feng Wuya F** King Feng Wuya. Feng Wuya's coffin was about to collapse. Enlin looked at the beauty who bore a slight resemblance to Feng Wuya. He felt like she was Feng Wuya's big sister, but he knew that this was Feng Wuya Little Na. You can't do this. Enlin tried to persuade her. How is this a bad habit? I'm just changing the gender of the guardian of the divine mirror world. Don't tell me that I, the goddess of creation of the divine mirror world, don't even have the right to decide the gender of the guardian of the divine mirror world? Enlin's lips twitched and he was a little speechless. He had initially been touched by Tina's words about not wanting his servant to look like his enemy, but Tina's solution was to change the male Feng Wuya into the female Feng Wuyan? Poor Feng Wuya. He had finally been reborn, but he still couldn't be a real man. He had been transformed into a woman, and this was even worse than being impotent. Thankfully, he had no thoughts or memories. Otherwise, he would definitely go insane. Right at this moment, an extremely dazzling divine light erupted from the lotus flower behind Feng Wuyan, and a black and white vortex appeared in the sky. The lotus flower petals began to fall off and drift into the sky before completely fusing into heaven and earth. Tina looked up into the sky, and her breathing became more and more profound. She spoke in an emotionless voice. The realm core has been mended and is now 100% complete. Heavenly opening. Evolution commencing. Her voice erupted directly between heaven and earth, as if it were a decree from the heavens. Whoosh! An invisible ripple proliferated forth from the sky, enshrouding the entire divine mirror world. The fundamental substance of the divine mirror continent began to increase drastically, and the spiritual aura became extremely rich. The earth began to expand outward, and the continent doubled, tripled, quadrupled. It only stopped after the continent had expanded to more than 10 times its original size. The vital energy was rapidly increasing, and the structure of the world became more and more stable. Giant Enlin, Dabai, Xiaohong, Little Gu, feel the changes in the world and observe the intent realm. I will bless you in the name of the heavens. Tina's body transformed into golden particles that disappeared from this world. At this moment, she was the heavens of the divine mirror world. Chapter 1396. The great Tao of heaven and earth resonated in unison as iridescent light spread throughout the entire sky. All of the living beings in the divine mirror world could see this extremely spectacular spectacle. Some of them were in awe, some of them were deep in thought, and some of them were even kneeling down in worship. Enlin and the others were standing on the grassy ground of the blessed land when light suddenly descended from the sky and fell upon their bodies. The light was dazzling golden, and it enshrouded Enlin, Dabai, Xiaohong, and Little Gu in a layer of faint golden light. At the same time, an extremely peculiar power began to merge into their bodies. This was the essential power that had been produced after the upgrade of the entire world. A peculiar intent realm and true intent began to flow into their bodies, and at that moment, they also began to witness all types of peculiar scenes. What Dabai saw was a boundless wind. Xiaohong saw the sun rising and setting. What Xiao Gu saw was a scene of spring that was a riot of colors. As for Enlin, he saw the entire world. He saw all of the beauty of the divine mirror world, as well as the prosperity of all of the living beings. Last time, his divine sense had been greatly enhanced during the creation and evolution of the world. This time, however, he felt as if a certain empty place in his heart had been filled. What is it that has been fulfilled? Enlil murmured with a perplexed expression. The upgrade of the world was accompanied by great opportunities for the entire world. When the goddess of creation personally opened the back door for Enlil and the others, one could only imagine just how monstrous these benefits were. Howl! I'm going to break through, woof! Debai's eyes lit up as he let loose a soft cry. Crack! It was as if some kind of shackle had been broken. Debai's aura completely transformed as vital energy surged for several dozen kilometers. Now that you mention it, I also want to make a breakthrough. Xiao Hong swayed her beautiful body as she leaped out of Enlin's pocket and landed on the ground. Boom! Her aura soared explosively, and she had clearly progressed from the soul formation intermediate stage to the soul formation final stage. The scorching sun in the sky lit up the entire world. Above Lil Red's head, a sun also appeared. It was as if it wanted to compete with the sun in the sky, and holy and warm light illuminated the world. Aya, you've all made breakthroughs. I want to make a breakthrough too. Little Gu transformed into the jade bone immortal bug before flying into the sky. A resounding crack erupted. The origin chi actually surged for hundreds of miles. Rumble! Dark clouds covered the sky, and origin energy surged like an ocean. Countless bolts of golden void lightning tore through the sky. Enlin's mouth gaped open upon seeing this, and he was completely dumbstruck. Breaking through just like that? Was it that simple? Take me with you, hurry up and take me with you. Enlin yelled in grief and indignation. His pet beasts had all broken through and transcended their tribulations. Only the salted fish owner hadn't reaped any benefits. However, his call did not receive any response. After all, the pet beasts were busy with their breakthroughs and tribulations. Where would they find the time to comfort their master? Debai and Little Red's breakthroughs to the soul formation stage were merely to absorb the essence chi of heaven and earth and perceive the intent realms. Little Gu was progressing to the return to void stage, so she had to transcend a golden void lightning tribulation. However, this type of tribulation lightning usually didn't kill anyone. Enlin could only look on with envy as salty tears silently flowed from his eyes. Meanwhile, all of the powerful beings at the soul formation pinnacle stage in the divine mirror world looked up into the sky at the same time. On the first human tower, a man and a woman held hands as they looked up at the boundless light in the sky. Smiles appeared on their faces. Clang clang, I had always thought that our inability to break through the final bottleneck was due to our lack of aptitude. Who would have thought that this was actually just a limitation of the world? The world is different now. Little Xia, let's make our breakthroughs together. Just like in the past, true love can allow us to conquer everything. Even a heavenly tribulation will be moved by our love. All right, clang clang. Little Xia. The couple on the tower embraced and kissed. Dark clouds gathered for hundreds of kilometers in the sky, and countless lightning dragons roared in the outer seas of the divine mirror world. The ocean surged as a series of tornadoes rose into the sky, sweeping up the dark clouds in the sky. Ha ha! Today is the day when I, the Dragon Emperor, ascend to the highest heavens. A six-clawed golden dragon emerged from the ocean, and countless bolts of golden void lightning fell from the sky, striking the dragon's tough scales. On the floating continent, the Dark-Wing Tribe Emperor's expression shifted drastically. Crap! I can't hold it in any longer. I'm going to transcend my tribulation. All of the Dark-Wing Tribe Elders' expressions shifted drastically. My king, is your tribulation transcendence going to be large? Is the lightning powerful? Should we take a step back? All of the elders had already dispersed before the Dark-Wing Tribe Emperor had a chance to say anything, leaving the Emperor alone on his throne. Ah! You bunch of cowards! Our Dark-Wing Tribe is the messenger of the heavens. How could we have cowards like you? The Dark-Wing Tribe Emperor roared with rage. Rumble! The only response he received was golden void lightning, which was becoming more and more fearsome. At the same time, terrifying tribulation lightning appeared on the island, beside the spirit lake, on the inky black land, on the mountain ranges, and even on the void spirit tribe territory, where the sky and earth were warping. All of the powerful beings in the world chose to transcend their tribulations at this moment. The elevation of the world had become a celebration for all of the cultivators in the world. This was like a sealed pot of energy that was constantly accumulating. As soon as the lid of the pot was broken, the energy would explode forth like a geyser. Master, I can't stabilize my cultivation base anymore. I want to continue making breakthroughs. What do I do? Xiao Hong's expression shifted slightly as a panicked expression appeared on her face. Lin felt as if he had been dealt another heavy blow upon hearing this, and he snapped, "If you can't stabilize your cultivation base, then don't. Hold onto the steering wheel and don't let your tribulation transcendence go awry." Sure enough, Xiao Hong let loose a tender moan as if another restriction had been broken, and her aura soared into the heavens, summoning lightning clouds for over 1,000 kilometers. Lin looked on expressionlessly at Xiao Hong, who was still transcending her tribulation. He didn't even have the mood to complain. Not only did they have to transcend their tribulations as a group, but they also had to transcend their tribulations one after the other? Did they have to be so irritating? Dabai, who had just broken through to the soul formation intermediate stage, was extremely excited as he continued to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to make his second breakthrough. Lin, little Na, have you forgotten about your beloved master? Lin raised his head with tears streaming down his face. His beast pets could all make breakthroughs in succession, but he was still standing here like an idiot. Why was he doing this? It wasn't fair. The sky then seemed to have heard Lin's anguished cries, and a voice sounded from above. "You can't. I can't understand your cultivation path, so I can't guide you." A mechanical yet extremely pleasant voice sounded. It seemed to be Tina's voice in her heaven transformation state. Lin instantly fell into despair upon hearing Tina's word. "That's right, I'm a false immortal. What the F***ck does their revelry have to do with me?" Chapter 1397. Lin sat on the grass with a dejected expression. The golden light descending from the sky enshrouded his entire body, but he didn't feel any warmth at all. That's right, after a certain emptiness in his heart had been filled, he no longer felt anything special. It was as if everything that was happening around him had nothing to do with him. Sigh. Lin heaved a forlorn sigh before pulling out a spirit fruit and munching on it. He then began to yell encouragement. "Dabai, Xiao Hong, little Gu, keep it up! Break through to the Tao integration stage and become the next god of creation." Dabai, Xiao Hong, and little Gu. Even if he was encouraging them, couldn't he at least be a little more sincere? Lin was still cheering them on. Even though he didn't have a chance to make a breakthrough himself, he was quite pleased to see his beast pet's progress in rank. The world was still undergoing a drastic transformation. The divine mirror world's territory was rapidly expanding, and its vital energy and aura were increasing explosively. All types of strange phenomena began to take place, and all types of exotic items, ferocious beasts, mystic realms, and so on and so forth. Many powerful beings at the soul formation pinnacle stage were making breakthroughs at the same time, creating a spectacular spectacle in the divine mirror world. Cracks also began to appear on the statues of their ancestors that they had worshipped for generations. "Look, our ancestor's statue is glowing. It's cracked. It's really cracked. My God! It's so beautiful." Boom! One fragment after another began to explode. Divine light dispersed the dust and debris, and a series of extremely powerful living beings emerged from the divine light. They had existed since the creation of this world, and they had hibernated for the sake of the stability of this world because they were far too powerful. They were the ancestors of the 10 realm guardian clans that reproduced on this land. They were formed in the form of a half-seal, sealed in stone. After experiencing countless years and witnessing the changes of the world, they finally broke out of the stone by borrowing the increase of the world's level. Hong Yuji of the Spirit Fish Clan, Priest Gui one of the Heavenly Turtle Tribe, Ao Chun of the Dragon Tribe, Dragon Rocky Lord of the Stone Tribe, Flower Night Queen of the Dark Wing Tribe, Holy Monarch Wuzhou of the Holy Martial Clan, Dream Spirit Snake of the Snake Spirit Clan, Sword Sparrow Immortal of the Vermilion Bird Tribe, and Poison Demon God of the True Demon Tribe had reappeared. Above the sky, the golden light also bathed their bodies. They had witnessed the development and changes of the entire world. After such a long period of time, even a pig could become a spirit. How could they not have some understanding? All of the Return to Void stage mighty figures began to transcend their tribulations after receiving the blessings of the heavens. There were also cultivators of the Return to Void initial stage, who were progressing from the Return to Void intermediate stage. Some of them had even attained their own divine Tao and progressed directly to the Return to Void final stage. Rumble, the entire world was covered in tribulation clouds. This was the busiest day for the Golden Void Lightning in the Divine Mirror world. In the core region of the Divine Mirror continent, Xiaohong, Xiaogu, and Dabai's breakthroughs finally stopped. I feel that my whole body is full of power. Woof. Dabai excitedly ran around the paradise like a monkey. Xiao 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 sounds as he tore through the air, his body so fast that it turned into a series of afterimages. It advanced from the pinnacle of the Soul Formation initial stage to the Soul Formation final stage in one go. Dabai, don't run around all over the place. Focus on stabilizing your cultivation base. Xiao Gu spoke in a gentle voice. She had already transformed into the Jade Bone Immortal Bug and swallowed an immortal pill before sitting down to meditate and stabilize her cultivation base. Xiao Gu had already progressed from the pinnacle of the Return to Void initial stage to the pinnacle of the Return to Void intermediate stage. Hey, don't run around all over the place. You should be praising the sun right after your breakthrough. Xiaohong wagged her little red head as she spoke in a sweet voice. She didn't appear to have changed much between before and after her breakthrough. In any case, she was still lying on the ground, basking in the sun like a salted fish. However, Unlin knew that Xiaohong was the most terrifying living being in terms of cultivation-based progression. First, she progressed from the Soul Formation intermediate stage to the Soul Formation final stage. Then, she progressed from the Golden Void Lightning Tribulation to the Return to Void stage. If normal people knew that Xiaohong had progressed 2 cultivation bases in a single day, they would probably be scared **less. Even if they were using hacks, they wouldn't be that bad **SS. Wait, it seemed like they were using hacks? They had used the blessing of the Goddess of Creation to transfer a portion of the fortune of leveling up the world to their beast pets. This was a very impressive move. Congratulations! If you don't have enough immortal pills for stabilizing your cultivation bases, feel free to come and get some from me, Unlin said with a heroic expression. As their master, he couldn't help them with their cultivation, but he could at least ensure that they didn't have to worry about food and clothing. Master, give me a Yang-type immortal pill. I've just finished that one, but I feel like I'm still lacking a little, Xiaohong said in a sweet voice. Master, I want an immortal pill that is imbued with powerful life force energy, Xiao Gu said in a gentle voice. Big brotherin, I want a wind-type immortal pill, woof! Dabai pounced toward Unlin with excitement. Unlin gave him a doting smile. I have everything, come here. He was never stingy when it came to beast pet cultivation resources. The iridescent light in the sky gradually began to dissipate. A woman exuding a sense of divinity slowly descended from the sky. Her features were exquisite and flawless, as if she were the most flawless work of art in this world. There was a mesmerizing smile on her face, and a holy light enshrouded her entire body, making her appear even more inviolable. What do you think? My benefits aren't bad, right? The woman looked at the man before her with a faint smile on her face. Her eyes shimmered as she looked at Anlin, as if she were asking for praise. Anlin gave her a thumbs up. Dabai, Xiao Hong, and Xiao Gu all exclaimed in unison. It had to be said that little Na had allowed them to experience the ecstasy of progressing by leaps and bounds. That was an extremely satisfying feeling. Little Na, I feel like you're a little different, Anlin said with a smile. Am I prettier? Tina asked with a dainty smile. She was currently in her human-sized form, and her beauty was already top-notch. She also had the freshness and naturalness of an elf, so from a certain perspective, she was indeed the most beautiful woman here. Not only have you become more beautiful, but your aura has also become even more unfathomable, Anlin said. There were very few beings in this world that Anlin couldn't accurately detect. Hee, I have some good news for you. Tina placed her hands behind her back as she spoke with a smug expression. Little Na is now at the Return to Void Pinnacle stage. Of course, this cultivation base doesn't refer to the omnipotent goddess of creation in the divine mirror world. Instead, it refers to Little Na's essential body, which is her body on the Tai Chu continent. Anlin's eyes widened as he drew a sharp intake of breath. Dabai, Xiao Hong, Xiao Gu, and the other beast pets were also completely dumbstruck. Aren't you only at the Return to Void initial stage? How are you already at the Return to Void pinnacle stage? Anlin's heart surged with shock. This world has already reached a level where Return to Void stage living beings can be born. Hence, as a goddess of creation, I have to be at the Return to Void pinnacle stage. Otherwise, how embarrassing would that be? This is the reward that the divine mirror world has given me, Tina explained. Anlin and all of his beast pets were dumbstruck. What kind of explanation was that? Chapter 1398. Anlin understood now. Tina and the divine mirror world were a pair that complemented one another. Tina could use certain methods to improve the divine mirror world and make it better and better. The divine mirror world could also provide feedback to the goddess of creation, thereby making her more powerful. Tina was the weakest god of creation that Anlin had ever seen, but she was also the god of creation with the most potential that Anlin had ever seen. After all, as far as Anlin knew, Tina was the only one who could fuse an entire world into a god of creation's body. Regardless of whether it was Nuwa or Nuwa, both of them were gods whose bodies had been separated from the world. Alright, so Anlin only knew one god of creation, Nuwa. He hadn't interacted with the other gods of creation yet. However, he had discussed this issue with the emperors of the celestial court. None of the gods of creation who could create a true world could fuse their bodies with the world and take them with them. Instead, they could only store their bodies in an independent space. Tina was quite impressive. She had created a world for no reason even before she had attained the god of creation stage, and the fragment of the realm core had even fused with her to help her create a world. It was exactly because of this that Tina seemed to have a higher level of authority in the divine mirror world than the average god of creation. Giant Anlin, my pokeball has also leveled up, Tina announced with an elated expression. Anlin faltered slightly before suddenly recalling that Tina had a pokeball in the past. It was a world-class treasure that could absorb enemies of a lower cultivation base than her into the pokeball. This power was completely useless to Anlin. He was already used to fighting enemies of a higher cultivation base than him. Using a higher cultivation base to bully an enemy of a lower cultivation base? He wasn't interested in that at all. So, what changes have you made to your pokeball? Anlin asked. Tina pointed at the black ball in her hand. The space within my pokeball can be used as a transit point for living beings between the two worlds. Living beings can stand within it and instantly transmigrate between the two worlds. In other words, I only have to throw this pokeball to summon a few hundred burly men to beat you up. Anlin's lips twitched upon hearing this. Wasn't this ability the same as the Wooling Van? Oh, that's right. Didn't you absorb a Black Fox clan powerhouse into your ball? How is he now? And Lin asked. The sword-wielding dark-winged tribe mighty figure was one of the powerful beings that Little Na had tossed into the ball during his battle against Chun Hao of the Black Fox tribe. Oh, you mean the little black fox? He's currently undergoing labor reform in my spherical space, and I've taught him well. Tina patted her little chest with a smug expression. What do you mean by discipline? This is called taming. Little Na, don't use that term in the future. Lin's expression darkened. Okay. Tina pursed her lips and nodded obediently. Lin was a little relieved to see that Tina was still quite obedient. One had to know that in the past, Tina was so innocent, cute, and kind-hearted. She was like an innocent girl next door, and she was always like Lin and Lin. But what about the current Tina? She was trying to break up a couple, she was trying to force someone to undergo a sex change, and now she was trying to teach them a lesson. Lin was really worried about her. Everyone wandered around the divine mirror-blessed land and ate some spirit fruit. They then looked at the tribulation transcendence situation in various places. They were quite carefree and happy. At this moment, the violent chain reaction triggered by the upheaval of heaven and earth had already calmed down. Over 100,000 living beings made breakthroughs in the divine mirror world today. Among them, 28 tried to progress to the return to void stage, but only 12 succeeded. Tina reported. You should ask the Lord of Transcendence for help. That way there would be at least 20 more return to void stage mighty figures, Lin said with a smile. So be it. It's not a bad idea to let nature take its course. After all, this is a wave of tribulation transcendence brought about by the leveling up of the world, so it's not a good idea to have outside interference. Tina was a little nonchalant. All right then. Lin agreed with Tina's point of view. 12 more return to void stage mighty figures is actually quite good. The overall power of the divine mirror world has been elevated to a whole new level. No, it's 21 return to void stage mighty figures. Those 9 return to void stage mighty figures are the most powerful beings in the divine mirror world, Tina explained with a faint smile. Lin came to a sudden realization and nodded. That's indeed the case. Massive changes had taken place in the divine mirror world. Tina had played the most important role in this process, and she had benefited immensely, but at the same time she was also extremely exhausted, as if she had just experienced a high fever. After some discussion, everyone decided to let the divine mirror world develop on its own for a while they returned to the Tai Chu continent to rest. Lin, Tina, Dabai, Xiao Hong, and Little Gu all returned to their dorm room. Xiao Hong sat peacefully on the windowsill, swaying her body from side to side. Little Gu transformed into a butterfly and fluttered under the moonlight. Dabai played with the silver wind blades in his domain to familiarize himself with the power he had just gained. Tina lay on Lin's chest and fell into a deep sleep. The night passed by in silence. The next day, Su Xiaolan knocked on Lin's door. She was still in a daze at the sight of all the beast pets in the room. Could it be that I opened the door the wrong way? Su Xiaolan murmured to herself after a moment of silence. There was a blank expression on her face. She discovered that Dabai had reached the soul formation pinnacle stage, Xiao Hong had reached the return to void stage, the Jade Bone Immortal Bug had reached the pinnacle of the return to void intermediate stage, and she couldn't see through Tina's cultivation base hut. Are you surprised? Lin chuckled. Su Xiaolan turned to Lin. Thank God you're still the same. Lin, why did those words sound so hurtful? Lin recounted everything that had happened in the divine mirror world to Su Xiaolan. Su Xiaolan felt like she was in a dream, and she turned to look at Tina. You can even do that? A faint smile appeared on Tina's face as she yawned. It's just a pity that it all happened so suddenly. Otherwise, I would have invited you to come with me. A forlorn expression appeared on Su Xiaolan's face upon hearing this. So be it. Everything has its own destiny, and we can't force anything. Let's talk about the 4-9 Immortal sect first. Lin nodded. From now on, I'm the full-time sect leader of the 4-9 Immortal sect. In the past, he was a student of Xiaoxian United University as well as the sect leader of the 4-9 Immortal sect, and he had no choice but to attend classes. Now that he had graduated, he had nothing to do, so he could only go back and inherit the massive cultivation business. Sect leader Lin, when do we set off? At this moment there were two people waiting outside. One of them had eyes as bright as the stars, and he was extremely handsome, as if he were a transcendent immortal. The other wore a flowing blue dress with a tranquil smile on her face, as if she were a celestial maiden under the moon. Lin was elated. Big Brother Qing, Su Qianyun, are you two ready? Let's go back to the 4-9 Immortal sect. Chapter 1399. The 4-9 Immortal sect was situated on a vast expanse of grassland in the Purple Star State. That place used to be a barren and desolate realm of the fallen phoenix. Only after chatting with Nuwa did Lin learn that Nuwa had used the residual power of the phoenix in the realm of the fallen phoenix to transform that barren realm into an extremely rare immortal paradise with her essential power of creation. He still had to thank Nuwa for this. He had thought that this was a blessing from the heavens, but who would have thought that he would be indebted to Nuwa? Lin, Su Xiaolan, Tina, Xiaohong, Dabai, Little Gu, Xianyuan Qing, Su Qianyun, Miao Tian, Luo Ziping, Zhong Yongyan, Sun Xinglian, and the others all traveled to the 4-9 Immortal sect together. Xianyuan Qing had the 10,000 spirits Immortal sect to inherit, and Su Qianyun had the Moon Palace to inherit, but none of that would stop them from becoming pavilion lords of the 4-9 Immortal sect. Cultivating anywhere was not the same as cultivating. It would be more fun if everyone cultivated together. The 4-9 Immortal sect was now a major cultivation sect with countless powerful immortals, and Lin decided that it was time to put on a good show. Thus, he convened a meeting with all of the higher-ups of the 4-9 Immortal sect. During the meeting, Lin donated all of the miscellaneous cultivation materials he had obtained from the Divine Source continent to the sect and only kept the immortal rank and above items for himself. This was an extremely massive amount of treasures. Everyone, including Bai Ling, was astonished by Lin's actions. Have you ever seen over 100 small mountains of treasures? This could no longer be described as extravagant. In Bai Ling's words, Lin had casually tossed out a cultivation resource base that rivaled that of the 4 great immortal sects. This was actually quite normal. After all, this was what the Immortal King Palace had obtained after squeezing the Divine Source continent dry for close to 10,000 years. Just the amount of resources alone was not something that the top-rate immortal sects of the Tai Chu continent could compare to. The disciples and elders of the 4-9 Immortal sect could stand up straight and tell everyone that their sect was just as rich as the 4 great sects of the Kingdom of the 9 States. Lin didn't feel much about these worldly possessions, and he wouldn't feel the pinch even if he gave them to the sect. He was the one who had founded the 4-9 Immortal sect, so he naturally had to protect it like a child. This was motherly love, selfless, considerate, and unrequited. Xiaozi was in charge of tabulating the newly added resources of the sect. With so many treasures, identifying, classifying, and storing them, he would probably be busy until tomorrow. However, he was very happy because counting treasures was the happiest thing in his life. During the meeting, they also decided to open the Flame Pavilion, Spirit Pavilion, Realm Pavilion, Moon Pavilion, and Beast Pavilion. They would choose an auspicious day to officially recruit core disciples. After the meeting, Lin and Xiaolan strolled around the sect. Master, look at this. Yiling ran over to him with a sweet smile and a hint of anticipation on her face. She raised her small hands high, and in her hands were 2 lifelike wooden carvings. One of them was a handsome sword immortal, while the other was an adorable little girl. They were carved from the same piece of wood, and their hands were connected at the point where they were holding hand. This wood is really well carved. It's so lifelike. An expression of appreciation appeared on Su Xiaolan's face. Little Ling, is this for me? It's so well carved. And Lin was extremely touched as he accepted the wooden carving. Master is even happier to receive this than those immortal tools. Thank you for your praise, Master's wife and Master's wife. I actually carved this in my spare time, so it's not a big deal. I just wanted to give it to Master to cheer him up. Even though Yi Ling said this, she couldn't disguise the elation on her face. The wooden carving depicted her master teaching her how to practice swordsmanship. She would never forget Lin teaching her how to practice the sword under the setting sun. Aside from her grandmother, no one else had been able to give her that kind of warmth and happiness. However, Lin had done it. He had given her a sense of family. Her family was happy because of her, so she was even happier. Little Ling, how's your sword cultivation going? Lin asked. I've already mastered the second stage of the 4-9 sword technique. Yi Ling replied with a wide grin. Little Ling is the best. Let Master's wife train with you. Su Xiaolan rubbed Yi Ling's soft cheeks with a doting expression. All right. Yi Ling grabbed onto this rare opportunity and ran toward the drill ground with Su Xiaolan in tow. Lin followed along behind the two of them with a smile on his face. The 4-9 sword technique was the standard sword technique of the 4-9 immortal sect that he, Su Xiaolan, and Lu Qinhuan had created together. It was a combination of Lin's observation of vanquish the heavens and slay all evil and the 6 strikes of the war god, Lu Qinhuan's observation of the heavenly sword sect's paramount sword techniques, and Su Xiaolan's observation of the vermilion bird sect's holy flame sword technique. There were a total of 18 sword techniques that anyone could learn, and the great Tao of sword intent pointed directly toward the very essence of the 4-9 sword technique. The 4-9 sword technique was extremely popular among the core members of the sect, and even Xiao Zhe, who didn't use the sword much, had learned a few techniques from it. This sword technique was very simple to learn, but it became more and more profound as one progressed. Occasionally practicing it would strengthen one's body, and disciples with aptitude in the Tao of the sword would benefit immensely. Just as the 4-9 immortal sect was flourishing, in the depths of the distant dark marshlands, there was a burial ground. A gargantuan blood wheel hung high in the sky, rotating incessantly. It was ancient, eternal, and boundless. 99 waterfalls of blood fell from the edge of the wheel, and a crimson mist enshrouded the earth within a radius of over 50 kilometers. This was the base of the Divine Disc League, a top-rate blood tribe power. Its status was equivalent to that of the 9 Imperials of the Kingdom of the 9 States, and countless blood tribe powerful beings and mighty figures were gathered here. At this moment, the leader of the Divine Disc League, Reginald, was within a secret chamber. The dim candlelight shone on his radiant face. His once old white hair had now become jet black. Even his wrinkled skin had become smoother. Many blood tribe powerful beings were astonished by Reginald's transformation. He had experienced a battle of life and death 100 years ago, and he had sustained severe injuries due to the repeated use of life-burning mystic technique. His life force had been completely depleted, and he was aging faster and faster. But now, he had suddenly regained his vitality. Not only had his appearance improved, but even his aura had become full of vitality. This was not something that could be faked. Countless people were both envious and curious about how he had managed to do this. Reginald announced to the public that he had found a divine medicine in a mystic realm, which was how he had been revived. However, he knew in his heart that this was all because of a drop of miraculous blood. That blood was holy and mighty. It was able to purify the filthy blood within his body. That's right, that drop of blood was the blood of the holy leader. Reginald carefully extracted a drop of blood from the vial under the dim candlelight. He looked as if he were looking at the most precious treasure in the world. This is the last drop. There won't be any left after this. I wonder when the sacred leader will lead us to a new world. Sigh. Reginald stared at the drop of blood with a hint of melancholy in his eyes. He didn't care about the blood patriarch as he was now a loyal follower of the holy leader. Everything could be faked, but blood could not be faked. The holy leader's blood could purify everything in his body. It was the most powerful blood he had ever seen, and the holy leader was definitely the most powerful being in this world. Reginald murmured to himself with anticipation in his eyes. I wonder what kind of being the holy leader is? I really want to see him soon. Chapter 1400. Reginald knew that the 3 holy disciples of the blood tribe were in direct contact with the legendary holy leader, and the holy disciples had told him that the holy worshippers who had pledged allegiance to the holy blood cult would soon have a chance to meet the holy leader. What an exhilarating prospect this was! As a high-ranking holy worshipper, Reginald was naturally looking forward to meeting the holy leader. To him, the holy leader was the mightiest living being in this world. She was the beacon of eternal life for him. He looked at the final drop of the holy leader's blood before him, and he stuck out his tongue with excitement and reluctance before swallowing it with a blissful expression. Reginald's body instantly trembled, and his eyes lit up as he let loose an intoxicated and satisfied cry, as if he had just eaten the most delicious food in this world. The candlelight flickered in the secret room. He was still enjoying it, reminiscing, and feeling his increasingly pure body. Boom! A violent boom suddenly erupted outside the Divine Disk League. Immediately afterward, the entire blood disk in the air tremored violently, as if a violent earthquake had taken place, knocking all of the tea sets on the table and all of the porcelain on the cabinet to the ground. What happened? A sense of foreboding welled up in Reginald's heart. Boom! Another earth-shattering boom erupted, accompanied by the blood-curdling cries of the blood tribe cultivators of the Divine Disk League. A beam of terrifying golden light shot forth from the outside of the blood wheel, shattering countless walls and tearing apart the bodies of countless blood tribe cultivators in its way with unstoppable force. Bam! The walls of the secret chamber also exploded. The golden light abruptly stopped, and a woman with short golden hair emerged from within the dazzling divine light. She held a silvery white longsword in her hand as she stared at Reginald with a cold and arrogant expression. Behind her, there were 2 beings in black robes floating in the void, their appearances indistinguishable. Ada, how dare you trespass on our Divine Disk League? Reginald roared with rage. The woman before him was none other than the seated candidate for the Holy Disciple election, Ada. She was also known as the most powerful blood tribe cultivator who was close to the Tao integration stage. Ada's entire body was enshrouded in golden divine light, and her eyes were completely emotionless. The leader of the Divine Disk League, Reginald, my master, Empress Helen, wishes to see you. Reginald's eyes widened with incredulity. Empress Helen wants to see me? Empress Helen was one of the 4 blood tribe Tao integration stage super mighty figures, and she was extremely adept at soul-searching and creating illusionary realms. She was the most powerful intelligence collector in the blood tribe and had almost all of the blood tribe's intelligence network under her control. No matter what happened in the dark marshlands, nothing could escape her control. Why does Empress Helen want to see me? A bad feeling welled up in Reginald's heart. The great Emperor's summons is like a heavenly decree. There's no need for you to ask. Just do as he says, Ada said calmly. The premonition in Reginald's heart grew even stronger. If the Emperor had something to discuss, why would he invite them in such a rude manner? They were obviously going to be interrogated. The blood race's great Emperor was the supreme existence of the blood race. No one dared to defy his orders. What if I refuse? Determination appeared in Reginald's red eyes. The news might have already leaked out. If Empress Helen was here for the holy leader, then no matter how resolute he was, there was no way that he would be able to withstand her interrogation and soul-searching. As such, he might as well turn her down. He didn't want to divulge any information regarding the Holy Leader. There was no way that he would betray the Holy Leader. Ada's expression shifted slightly, clearly a little surprised by Reginald's decisiveness. Refusing the great Emperor's orders is the same as betraying the Blood Tribe. You know what the consequences are. Ha ha ha. I, Reginald, am only loyal to the blood within my body. I've never betrayed it. As for you guys, don't even think about leaving. Reginald chortled with glee as he stomped the ground, and a dark red formation replaced the shattered spell formation. Divine Disc Life and Death Formation, activate. The Divine Disc Life and Death Formation was the trump card of the Divine Disc League. It had been nourished by blood for over 10,000 years and absorbed the essence of blood. When the formation was completely activated, it could even unleash Tao integration stage power in an instant. Reginald had already decided to activate the final killing formation to cleanse the Holy Leader's enemies, then escape from the dark marshlands and await the Holy Leader's summons. Rumble! The massive crimson disk in the sky suddenly began to revolve at a speed over 100 times faster than normal. Countless streams of blood converged toward the center of the crimson disk like a massive vortex. At the same time, an extremely terrifying power erupted from the formation before crashing into Ada's body. This was an extremely rich power of life and death. The combination of the two could produce an extremely explosive power, and it was like a millstone that could instantly pulverize a return-to-void stage cultivator into dust. The golden divine radiance around Ada's body transformed into the sturdiest barrier, and it actually completely isolated the power that covered the sky and the earth outside of her. Reginald, you really do have ulterior motives toward the great emperors. Is this also because of the holy blood? Ada's expression darkened as she roared with rage. You know about the holy blood? Reginald's expression shifted, and he immediately crushed a jade talisman that contained some kind of information. Then I can't let you live. He pressed a hand down, and a dark red power instantly converged upon Ada's body like a millstone. Boom! The area within a radius of several dozen kilometers was instantly pulverized by the power of the formation. Even the divine disk itself had been corroded by the power of the formation, upon which a massive hole had appeared. However, what was astonishing to Reginald was that, at the center of the hole, there was a brilliant golden light. Not only had Ada unleashed the golden light of the divine Tao, but the two black-robed powerful beings behind her had also unleashed peerless golden divine light. They formed a stable triangular formation, creating a triangular defensive barrier that kept the Crimson Disk's attack at bay. This divine light. All three of Empress Helen's holy golden guardians are here? Reginald's expression shifted once again. The three holy golden guardians possessed a combination technique that could unleash power comparable to that of a Tao integration stage super mighty figure for a short period of time. It looked like Empress Helen had been suspicious of him for a long time. Otherwise, she wouldn't have made such extensive preparations. Not only had Ada been deployed, but she had also deployed the other two holy golden guardians. One blood tribe powerful being after another flew out from the crimson disk before staring at Ada and the others with expressions of shock and horror on their faces. Alliance leader, what's going on? One of the spectators asked in a loud voice. At the same time, a series of powerful pillars of blood erupted into the sky. All of the Return to Void stage blood tribe mighty figures emerged from the crimson disk before glaring at Ada and the others with enmity in their eyes. Run! Reginald roared at the Divine Disc League cultivators. Not only was he speaking to the blood tribe cultivators who didn't know the truth, but he was also speaking to the loyal followers of the Holy Leader. Chapter 1401. It's too late, Ada said in a cold voice. She looked up into the sky and half knelt to the ground with an extremely respectful expression. Holy Golden Guardian pays her respects to Empress Helen. Rumble, night covered the sky, and darkness descended. A series of black silk threads intertwined and fell from the sky like a cage, sealing the space within a radius of over 150 kilometers, thereby giving all of the blood tribe cultivators of the Divine Disc League no chance of escape. Reginald's features turned deathly pale as he looked up into the sky with despair. How is this possible? Even Empress Helen has come in person? All of the other blood tribe powerful beings were also extremely horrified. Tao integration stage emperors were paramount beings in the eyes of the blood tribe. They were virtually invincible, and no living being dared to defy them. Now that an emperor had descended upon them, what hope did they have? Reginald, you have betrayed the blood tribe and are now defying my orders. Are you ready to be searched by me? A cold, emotionless, yet powerful voice sounded in the sky. Reginald roared as he injected all of his power into the divine disc life and death formation. The formation rotated frantically, and a crimson spear over 10,000 meters in length materialized before hurtling directly toward the Emperor in the sky with extremely terrifying power of life and death. This was the formation's most powerful technique, as well as Reginald's final struggle. The power of the Crimson Spear was comparable to an attack from a Tao integration stage super mighty figure, and even space itself was annihilated in its wake. The Crimson Spear pierced through the sky for over 100 kilometers before crashing into the black sky, upon which the extremely sharp and powerful might of the Blood Spear made the black sky surge violently. This is barely comparable to the power of a Tao integration stage super mighty figure. A woman in a black palatial dress appeared in the sky. She was tall and slender with a head of black curly hair and a pair of crimson eyes that were imbued with bloodthirst and mercilessness. The Crimson Spear tremored violently, but it was unable to advance any further. This was because it had already been gripped tightly in Helen's hand. Bam! A resounding boom erupted. The Crimson Spear tremored violently before being crushed, upon which it exploded into a boundless rain of blood. Reginald, you dare to attack the Blood Tribe Emperor? That's an additional crime. Die. She unleashed a palm as she spoke. This palm carried with it the power to destroy heaven and earth, and it enveloped all living beings. The blood tribe cultivators of the Divine Disc League were struck by a sense of despair, as if they had nowhere to run. Some screamed as they fled, while others knelt to the ground and begged for their lives. All of them yelled that they had nothing to do with Reginald's betrayal. After all, there were only a handful of Return to Void stage mighty figures who knew about the Holy Leader. However, the black palm continued to descend mercilessly, not distinguishing between friend and foe, crushing everything in its path. As a blood tribe emperor, he would never differentiate between innocent and guilty. Empress Helen would rather kill 10,000 innocent people than let a single innocent person escape. That was her principle. The pitch-black palm shattered the divine disc life and death formation and smashed the continent-sized disc into pieces before swallowing all of the blood tribe powerful beings. Reginald roared as he unleashed his power of the divine Tao to resist, but the difference between their powers was like the difference between a firefly and the moon. He was completely unable to resist Empress Helen's power. With a deafening roar, the roulette disappeared from the world. The ancient power that had stood for tens of thousands of years on the dark marshlands had been destroyed in a single day. Empress Helen stood proudly in the sky as countless streams of information flashed through her eyes. These were the memories of all of the blood tribe cultivators she had slain, and they converged to form an ocean that flowed into Helen's mind. After analyzing all of the memories, an expression of astonishment appeared on Helen's face, and she was momentarily unable to come to her senses. "What's wrong, Empress Helen?" Ada was a little concerned upon seeing the peculiar expression on her master's face. Helen came to her senses and didn't say anything. Instead, she looked toward the center of the dark marshlands with a grave expression. That was the holy land of the Blood Patriarch, a place that only the holy disciples of the Blood Patriarch had a chance to enter at this moment, within the holy land of the Blood Patriarch. 3 red-robed mighty figures were walking side by side within the ancient barren land. There was a vast expanse of land with no end in sight. There were ancient and dilapidated buildings here, as well as ghastly battle scars. For example, there were sword gashes that extended for several hundred kilometers, fist imprints that were so deep that one couldn't even see how deep they were, and spell techniques that were still emanating extremely terrifying energy fluctuations. Ancient and peculiar skeletons could be seen everywhere. Tattered weapons lay hidden beneath the yellow sand. The holy land of the Blood Patriarch wasn't some immortal paradise. Instead, it was an ancient battlefield dominated by the Blood Tribe. The Blood Patriarch had sustained irreversible injuries on this battlefield, which was why he had fallen. There were ancient weapons that had been left behind at an unknown time, as well as supreme Tao techniques and true intent left behind by battle, as well as mutated treasures waiting to be excavated. The Holy Leader has graduated, so it's time for us to report our progress to him. A beautiful woman with a head of golden hair and an extremely alluring figure spoke with a scorching light in her eyes. She seemed to already be imagining the ecstasy of fusing with the Holy Leader's blood. This woman was none other than Cassidy, one of the 3 holy disciples of the Blood Tribe. The rate at which the Holy Blood cult is developing has far exceeded our expectations. There are currently 12 first-rate Blood Tribe powers with a total of 19 Return to Void stage mighty figures who have pledged their loyalty to the Holy Leader. Merlin spoke with a smile. The rest are all subordinate powers of the Emperor's, so we have to be very careful. Tobias spoke in an indifferent voice. I really want the Emperors to have a taste of the Holy Leader's holy blood. I want to as well. It's very dangerous, but what if we succeed? Cassidy was also very much looking forward to this, but she also knew that this was no different from testing the waters on the brink of death. If they failed, they would die, but that wouldn't be the worst outcome. However, if their plans to develop the Holy Blood cult were to be exposed, then they would be in a lot of trouble. Cassidy and the others chatted as they entered a palace that had been sliced in half. There's a burning lamp here? Cassidy's eyes lit up, and she picked up an ancient burning lamp in the shape of a lotus flower before carefully inspecting it. The burning lamp seemed to have detected something, and it suddenly burst into flames. A small yellow figure appeared from the flames. It had a benevolent look on its face, and its expression was unfathomable. It said calmly, I'm the genie of the genie. You've summoned me, so you have to grant me 3 wishes. Cassidy. The genie continued, Number 1, you have to take me away from this accursed place. Number 2, you have to feed me blood every day so that I can recover my power. Number 3, you have to find me a perfect body. If you can't do this, then you'll have to bear my most terrifying curse. Splat. Cassidy remained expressionless as she smashed the genie lamp into smithereens. Tobias massaged his brows. It's another one of those crazy artifacts, Spirit. Aside from all types of strange and unfathomable treasures, there were also a lot of random things in this place, all of which had evolved over the course of countless years and could only be used to scare people, but were completely useless. The 3 of them rummaged through the palace again. There doesn't seem to be anything left here. Let's go somewhere else, Cassidy suggested. They had only just emerged from the palace when their storage rings lit up at the same time. Immediately afterward, their expressions shifted in unison. Crap. Reginald's plans have been exposed. He's trying to escape now. Let's contact the other Holy Blood cult members and tell them to conceal themselves. Not long after that, all of the Divine Disc League holy worshippers, including Reginald, had their badges of life reduced to dust. Chapter 1402. The 3 holy disciples knew what it entailed for all of the Divine Disc League holy worshippers to die. The situation had reached the most serious stage. It's very likely that the Emperors of the Blood Tribe have already found out about us. Cassidy's brows furrowed with a grave expression. The only good thing is that we're the only ones who know about the identities of the other holy worshippers. The holy worshippers don't know each other's identities, so there won't be too much information leak. I've already used a special signal to inform the other holy worshippers so that they can hide themselves. Tobias spoke in an indifferent voice. But the holy worshippers know who we are. Merlin said nervously, "It's very likely that we've already been exposed. We should get out of the dark marshlands immediately." Cassidy heaved a forlorn sigh. "How long do you think it would take for a Tao integration stage supermighty figure to get here? We haven't even escaped from the Blood Tribe Holy Land yet, so the Emperors are probably already waiting for us outside. Then what do we do?" Cold sweat was already pouring down Merlin's forehead. They held lofty positions in the Blood Tribe, and they were even comparable to Emperors. However, if they were deemed traitors by the Emperors, then the Tao integration stage Emperors still had the right to bring them to the Blood Patriarch for judgment. In other words, if they lost their identities as holy disciples, they wouldn't be able to resist the power of a Tao integration stage Emperor. The first option is for us to commit suicide right now. That way, the Emperors won't be able to obtain any information from us, Cassidy suggested. Tobias and Merlin's lips twitched upon hearing this. They were already prepared to give up everything for the holy leader, but it was a little too rash to commit suicide. But if we do that, the Holy Blood cult will be leaderless, and that would be a very heavy blow to the Holy Blood cult. The second option is for us to hide within the Blood Tribe Holy Land. No one other than the holy disciple of the Blood Patriarch can enter this place, so we can wait for the holy leader to rescue us. Cassidy tucked a strand of golden hair behind her ear and looked up into the distant sky as she spoke. "But how is the holy leader going to come in and save us?" Merlin was still extremely concerned. "The reason why the Divine Ancestor is the Divine Ancestor is because his power is beyond our imagination. What makes you think the holy leader can't come in?" Cassidy harumphed coldly. "Merlin." The three of them looked at each other and understood each other's thoughts. "I want to taste the sacred ancestor's blood again. I haven't seen the glory of the sacred blood cult yet. I'm not willing to give up. The sacred ancestor will definitely come to save us." Just like that, all three of them chose the second option. Rumble. A strange fluctuation suddenly appeared in heaven and earth. Cassidy's expression shifted drastically. "Crap. Another living being has barged in. It's Emperor Unmang." Merlin drew a sharp intake of breath. Emperor Unmang was the previous holy disciple, so he naturally had the right to enter the Blood Tribe Holy Land. "Why are you still standing there? Run." "Yes. Quickly find a place to hide." The Kingdom of the Nine States. 4-9 Immortal Sect. In a room with a faint fragrance of rouge. Lu Qianhuan's face was flushed red, and her bright purple eyes were scorching with focus. "Unlin, hurry, hurry," she urged. "Don't rush, I'm coming." Unlin's breathing accelerated as he swallowed nervously. Lu Qianhuan opened her delicate lips and exhaled a fragrant breath. "What are you doing? Hurry up and increase the firepower. I can't do this all at once." Unlin's fingers moved quickly. I can't hold on any longer." Lu Qianhuan's purple eyes glazed over. "I'm already doing my best." Unlin was sweating profusely from exhaustion. I'm at my limit." Lu Qianhuan's body tensed up as she let loose a delicate cry. Bam! The sound of an explosion could be heard. Ding! A large red fail symbol appeared on the screen. Unlin and Lu Qianhuan were drenched in sweat as they stared at the fail symbol on the screen and fell into a long silence. "I, Unlin, have dominated the League of Legends for so many years, but now I can't even defeat an AI. Unlin heaved a forlorn sigh as he stared down at his 0 to 15 number. Wah! I've personally blessed my female sorceress, but I still can't defeat my opponent. Her positioning is like a hack. Lu Qianhuan's eyes were red, and her lips were puckered in displeasure as she stared down at her 0 to 20 number. Bai Ling was ecstatic. This is the combat artificial intelligence I designed. It can use the most accurate and powerful calculations as well as all kinds of psychological and personality abilities to find the opponent's flaws in less than a 10,000th of a second, thereby devising the most optimal strategy. How about it, do you concede defeat now? Lu Qianhuan was on the verge of tears as she stared down at the ghastly number before her. Again. I'm going to redeem my female sorceress. I, Unlin, have never been inferior to anyone in real life or in the game. Unlin was also very indignant. However, before he could even begin a new battle, the voice transmission talisman in his storage ring suddenly glowed with a bright light. This is a voice transmission from the head of the Dark Marshlands Executive Department, Jean Hu? A confused expression appeared on Unlin's face, but he still immediately accepted the voice transmission. Jean Hu was the leader of the Celestial Court, so it was most likely very important that he was personally making a voice transmission. Sect Leader Unlin, bad news. Jean Hu's urgent voice sounded as soon as he accepted the voice transmission talisman. What happened? Unlin's brows furrowed with concern. According to a report from the Blood Tribe, the Divine Disc League of the Blood Tribe has just been destroyed. Jean Hu replied. Divine Disc League? Unlin's heart jolted upon hearing this. What happened? If he recalled correctly, his servant, Tobias, was once the Grand Elder of the Divine Disc League. Jean Hu replied in a solemn voice. Apparently, Empress Helen was the culprit, so they might already know something. A certain person in the core region of the Blood Tribe also said that the 3 holy disciples are still at the Blood Tribe Holy Land, and Emperor Enmang has already gone to the Holy Land in person. Unlin abruptly stood up from his seat. Sect Leader Unlin, please don't do anything rash. The Holy Land is located in the core region of the Dark Marshlands, and there's a formation left behind by the Blood Patriarch there. Even the Celestial Tharch wouldn't dare to venture too deep into that place. Jean Hu hurriedly tried to dissuade Unlin from doing something irrational. There's no time. Every minute that passes now puts them in more danger. A resolute expression appeared on Unlin's face as he made his way out the door. You have to calm down. They're only your servants, but you're the hope of the Kingdom of the 9 States. Don't do anything rash unless you're certain of your chances. I've already contacted the Celestial Tharch, and we'll make a detailed plan before taking action, Jean Hu added. Servants? Even if they're my servants, I can't afford to wait for them. Unlin ended the voice transmission before turning to everyone behind him. I'll be back soon. Take care of yourself and don't force yourself. Lu Qianhuan put down her phone. A smile appeared on Bai Ling's face upon hearing this. If you're in a hurry, you can take my newest purple star rocket. We've already confirmed the coordinates of the Blood Tribe anyway, so it'll be faster than teleportation. Unlin hesitated momentarily before finally nodding. All right. Chapter 1403. At the exit of the Mystic Realm. Suddenly, a huge rocket appeared in the sky. This was a pristine white shell with a red pointy tip and a pair of semi-transparent golden wings. Unlin was tied tightly to the outside of the rocket by a golden thread, and the chilly wind blowing toward him tousled his hair. He looked as if he were a heretic who was about to be sent to the heavens for his punishment. He looked down at Bai Ling with a dark expression. Is this what you're talking about when you say you want me to ride a rocket? Is this how you ride a rocket in your family? He tied his body to the exterior of the rocket before riding it into the sky. Would you believe it? An expectant smile appeared on Bai Ling's face. This Purple Star one is only a prototype, so it doesn't have any passenger capabilities. You'll have to make do with it. That's a little scary. Am I really not going to die? Unlin was feeling quite uneasy. You're a return to void stage mighty figure now, why are you scared of these things? Don't you think it's embarrassing? Bai Ling spoke with a disdainful expression, besides, every second counts. Even if you're doing this for Cassidy and the others, you still have to do it. And Lin, that did sound like a good point. F***ck. I'm going to give it my all for Cassidy and the others. Alright, hurry up and send me into the sky. And Lin took a deep breath. Right at this moment, a voice sounded in the distance. Giant and Lin, why didn't you take me with you when you were going to fight? An extremely beautiful fairy flew toward them from the distance with a concerned expression on her face. And Lin, don't think about facing this on your own this time, I can help you too. Su Xiaolan also flew toward Anlin atop her sword like a fluttering azure shadow. Look, our sect leader has been tied to a rocket. What is he doing? Is he going to fly out of the Tai Chu continent and into the Sea of Stars? I feel like something's not quite right. Is this how humans fly into the sky in the mortal world? Due to the large size of the rocket, many of the sect disciples also caught sight of it and began to discuss spiritedly among themselves. Anlin saw Tina and Su Xiaolan flying over, and he immediately said, "Light the fire." The enemies he was going to face were most likely Dao integration stage super mighty figures, so it was far too dangerous to bring Su Xiaolan and the others with him. After all, no matter how powerful Su Xiaolan was, she was still invincible below the Dao integration stage, but her opponent was a Dao integration stage super mighty figure. Bai Ling immediately replied, 10, 9 and Lin's face darkened as he urged, "Light the fire now. Why are you still counting down at this time? Do you think that Su Xiaolan and the others are not running fast enough?" Bai Ling sped up upon hearing this. 8765 and Lin was furious. "I told you to start the fire immediately, not to speed up the countdown." Bai Ling couldn't be bothered to respond to him. How could he understand the sacred and ritualistic feeling that came with launching a rocket? If there wasn't even a countdown, then there was no soul in launching a rocket like this. Tina and Su Xiaolan were extremely fast, and they instantly appeared before Anlin in an attempt to hug onto the rocket and fly into the sky with it. However, right at this moment, a spatial barrier suddenly appeared in front of the two of them. It was as if they had crashed into an invisible wall, and they were unable to break through it even with their ability to tear through space. 4, 3, 2, 1, light the fire. Bai Ling completed the countdown with a smile on her face. How could there be no environmental protection measures for a rocket launch? There was no way that a return to void stage mighty figure would be able to break through her spatial barrier. Rumble, an extremely dazzling light erupted from the bottom of the rocket, and the recoil propelled the rocket into the sky. At the same time, the semi-transparent golden wings on either side of the rocket extended for over a kilometer, and they began to flap their wings like birds as an indescribably powerful propulsion force began to appear. Anlin was dragged into the sky by the rocket. "Ah!" Anlin couldn't help but let loose an involuntary scream from the overwhelming sense of gravity. All of the spectating disciples of the 4-9 Immortal sect were astonished. "Look, our sect leader is ascending into the sky live. Pavilion leader Xiaolan and Pavilion leader Tina are giving chase. So fast. Will they be able to catch up? Our sect leader is so blessed to be chased by two exquisitely beautiful women. Is this the legendary manned rocket? It looks very exciting." Anlin was propelled into the sky by the rocket, and his speed became faster and faster. Su Xiaolan and Tina wanted to follow along, but they didn't dare to forcibly break through the rocket's defenses in case they accidentally destroyed it. Wouldn't that hinder their plan to save Cassidy and the others? Su Xiaolan was both enraged and panicked, and tears welled up in her eyes. "Anlin, you be **starred. I'm not going to hold you back. Why didn't you take me with you?" Anlin was feeling a little guilty upon hearing this. "I'll be right back. Wait for me." There was no way that he could actually fight the Blood Tribe Emperors, and there was no way that he could win. He had his own plan, and it would be difficult to carry it out with too many people, so it was better to fight alone. Enlil had already communicated with the Celestial Arch via voice transmission talisman prior to boarding the rocket. The three emperors had other important missions and couldn't return in a short time. However, the Celestial Arch and Emperor Ziwei were free. They would go to the main Blood Tribe territory to stir up trouble and lure the other Blood Tribe emperors into attacking them. Enlil would take this opportunity to enter the core region of the Blood Tribe and save the three holy disciples before retreating as quickly as possible. Now, the Celestial Arch and Emperor Ziwei had already set off. Dao integration stage mighty figures were extremely fast, and they could travel over 500 kilometers with a single stride, which was beyond the imagination of normal living beings. They would most likely be able to attract the attention of the Blood Tribe emperors even before Enlil arrived. Dao integration stage super mighty figures could sense one another, and the return to void stage Enlil would be able to take advantage of this opportunity to sneak in. Enlil had to make every second count, so it was perfect for him to board the rocket. Coordinates confirmed, orbit confirmed. Entering Golden Shuttle mode. A mechanical voice suddenly sounded, immediately following which boundless golden light erupted from the rocket, enshrouding Enlil's entire body. At the same time, spatial ripples proliferated throughout heaven and earth from the very front of the rocket. Giant Enlil. A clear and pleasant voice approached him from afar. Enlil turned to discover a little fairy with divine symbols flashing all over her body. In the next instant, even with Enlil's power level, he lost sight of the little fairy's vision. However, his neck was suddenly constricted by a delicate arm, and he felt as if he were about to suffocate. Holy F***CK. Are you trying to kill me? Enlil was given a massive fright. Hee. You won't be able to get rid of little Na. A vibrant smile appeared on the little fairy's face as she wrapped her soft, translucent arms around Enlil's neck in a death grip. Enlil was completely speechless. Not only had his entire body been constricted by the golden threads, but now even his neck was being strangled by her. Did he even have any freedom left? Just as he was feeling bewildered, the rocket accelerated to its maximum speed, and its massive body disappeared into thin air as if it were plunging into a pool of water. Su Xiaolan was on the verge of tears as she stared at Enlil's disappearing figure. You've grown wings now, so you don't want me anymore? My rocket defenses are clearly impenetrable by beings below the Dao integration stage, so how could a return to void stage fairy be able to pierce through them? Chapter 1404. At the center of the dark marshlands, within the immortal spirit paradise. This was a holy land that was so beautiful that it was tempting to linger on. The blue sky was extremely clear, and white cranes flew through the clouds while letting loose bursts of ethereal cries. Even Emperor and Mang of the Celestial Court didn't dare to set foot in the central region of the Blood Tribe. However, there were currently 3 Dao integration stage super mighty figures gathered here, and all of them wore grave expressions, as if they were enraged. Including Emperor and Mang, who had entered the holy land of the Blood Tribe, all of the Dao integration stage super mighty figures of the Blood Tribe had been gathered here. The Blood Tribe emperors all had their own territories, so there was no way that all 4 emperors would gather here if it wasn't for something extremely important. The 3 emperors stood outside a crimson palace, and no Dao integration stage super mighty figures dared to approach the entire immortal spirit paradise. Who is this holy leader they're talking about? Emperor Fu Tian, who had a delicate face and a scarlet fan in his hand, chuckled and said, I really want to see that person. Just how did he manage to rope in so many blood race supreme beings who are dead set on his side? Sigh, who would have thought that even the 3 holy disciples would be involved in this? The holy disciples are the ones chosen by the Blood Patriarch to revive the Blood Tribe. How could they do something like this? This is ridiculous. Emperor Yi Deng spat through gritted teeth. There must be other holy worshippers lurking in our dark marshlands. Once Mang captures the 3 holy disciples, we'll gather all of the Return to Void stage lords and investigate them one by one, Empress Helen said. Emperor and Mang had already entered the Holy Land, and the other emperors were standing guard outside in case the legendary Holy Leader came to their rescue. Emperor Yi Deng spoke with a tense expression, "Let's not get complacent. This Holy Leader must be quite powerful for the 3 holy disciples to be willing to risk their lives for him. He's at least a Tao integration stage super mighty figure, or even a God of creation stage super mighty figure." The other 2 emperors' expressions also became solemn upon hearing this. Right at this moment, the 3 emperors suddenly sensed something, and they all turned toward a certain direction in the dark marshlands. As expected, a Tao integration stage super mighty figure has entered our territory, Empress Helen exclaimed. Due to the fact that Tao integration stage super mighty figures had fused their Tao into the great Tao of heaven and earth, they were able to sense one another. Is the sacred ancestor here? Emperor Fu Tian waved his feather fan with a smile. Wait. This aura is very familiar. Emperor Yi Deng's brows furrowed as he exclaimed, "This is the aura of the Celestial Dharch and Emperor Ziwei." As soon as he said that, the great emperor's faces changed. Is the ruler of the Celestial Court trying to start an all-out war against the Blood Tribe? A cold expression appeared on Helen's face as her crimson eyes narrowed slightly. Not long after, the great emperor's sound-transmitting talismans kept flashing. Without needing to answer them, they knew that many territories were being destroyed by the great emperors of the Celestial Court. This can't be a coincidence. Is he trying to lure us away from our territory? Emperor Fu Tian asked. It looks like the venerated ancestor has connections with the Celestial Court. Let's not fall for it. It's not a matter of whether we fall for their tricks or not. If we stay here and don't do anything, those 2 emperors of the Celestial Court will tear down our entire dark marshlands. Helen heaved a resigned sigh. We have to fight. The Celestial Dharch is not easy to deal with. Emperor Yi Deng heaved a forlorn sigh. What's so hard about it? I'll handle it myself. Emperor Fu Tian's tone was gentle and unhurried. A faint smile still hung on his face. Yi Deng and Helen both heaved sighs of relief upon seeing that Emperor Fu Tian was willing to step in. Emperor Fu Tian was the most powerful being in the Blood Tribe, so he was the only one who could stand up to the Celestial Dharch. Then I'll go stop Emperor Ziwei. Empress Helen turned to Emperor Yi Deng. You stay at the Immortal Spirit Paradise and contact us if anything happens. Yi Deng smiled. Don't worry, the Immortal Spirit Paradise has a divine Tao silence formation left behind by the Blood Patriarch, which can seal the divine Tao of all living beings aside from the Blood Tribe. Even if a Celestial Dharch were to come here, they wouldn't be able to unleash their power of the divine Tao. Do you think I'll be afraid of them? Emperor Yi Deng was extremely confident. He had never been afraid of anyone in the Immortal Spirit Paradise. Emperor Fu Tian and Empress Helen also thought the same, and they set off toward the battlefield. Emperor Fu Tian's body gradually became illusionary before disappearing between heaven and earth. All of you, guard this place with Emperor Yi Deng, Helen instructed. A beautiful woman with short golden hair and the 2 black-robed mighty figures behind her lowered their heads in unison. We will. The 3 holy golden guardians were all extremely powerful, so they would be very useful here. Helen nodded, and she used her sleeves to carve out a path that extended into the sky. She then stepped forward, covering a distance of over 100 kilometers with each step, and her body quickly disappeared into the distance. Emperor Yi Deng looked on at the departing figures of the 2 emperors before sitting back down on his throne with a cold harumph. So what if he's trying to lure us away? That holy leader probably doesn't know how terrifying the Immortal Spirit Paradise is. That's the foundation upon which the Blood Tribe relies. If the holy leader dares to come here, I'll make sure he never returns. At this moment, there were already many blood tribe powerful beings and mighty figures gathered near the immortal spirit paradise. Some of them had been summoned, some of them were here out of curiosity, and there were also some who had ulterior motive. The only thing they had in common was that they had all maintained a very large distance from the entrance to the blood tribe's holy land. Otherwise, just a single battle would be enough to kill them without even knowing how they died. The only ones who had decided to participate in this battle were Emperor Yi Deng and the 3 holy golden guardians. Okay, what's going on? I don't know. Apparently, the Divine Disc League was destroyed by Empress Helen, and now there are even emperors guarding this place. Could it be that someone is going to attack the immortal spirit paradise? All of the emperors have been mobilized at once. The world is about to change. The immortal spirit paradise is protected by a formation left behind by the Blood Patriarch. Which mighty figure would dare to charge in? Most of the blood tribe powerful beings were oblivious to the situation. However, there were also some blood tribe mighty figures whose eyes were shimmering with a hint of anticipation. If their speculations were correct, then were they going to see the legendary holy leader? With this in mind, all of the mighty figures began to breathe heavily. The might of the holy leader was something that they yearned for day and night, even in their dreams. Now that the holy leader was about to descend upon the mortal world like a heavenly god, they wondered just how powerful he would be. Just as the blood tribe mighty figures were fantasizing, Yi Deng's expression shifted again as he turned toward a certain direction in the sky. Is the holy leader finally here? Why can't I sense any energy fluctuations from him? Rumble, a resounding boom suddenly erupted in the sky. Golden ripples surged forth, and a pointy red head appeared in the air. What's that? So long, so thick, so big. There's a person tied to it. Ah, it's falling. A rocket with a pair of golden wings suddenly appeared in the sky before crashing down toward the immortal spirit paradise at an extremely terrifying speed. Even Emperor Yi Deng was unable to react in time. Look out! Run! The rocket crashed into the ground before exploding violently. Boom! Chapter 1405. Just like that, the huge fire arrow landed on the ground at lightning speed. The blood tribe mighty figures could even hear the pitiful cries for help from the person on the rocket. The rocket crashed into the ground and exploded. Golden energy erupted forth, destroying everything in its path. Devastating energy swept forth for over 50 kilometers, creating a spectacular mushroom cloud. The defensive formation of the immortal spirit paradise was instantly activated to absorb the destructive energy. However, it was all too late. Tens of thousands of blood tribe cultivators were caught up in the shockwave, and they suffered heavy casualties. A large area of buildings had been razed to the ground. Almost all of the blood tribe cultivators knew who the intruder was. This was most likely the enemy the emperors were waiting for. The holy worshippers hidden among the blood tribe powerful beings also knew that the intruder was most likely the holy leader. They had all envisioned how that powerful being would make an entrance. It would definitely be very extravagant, very awe-inspiring, and very tempting. However, all of them looked up at the terrifying mushroom cloud. They knew that they had only guessed the beginning correctly. It was extravagant and awe-inspiring, but as for what it was, they couldn't bring themselves to think about it. Cough, cough, cough. My God, did they drop a bomb on our immortal spirit paradise? A kind-looking blood tribe man with a large wine gourd strapped to his back patted the dust off his face with a disgruntled expression. That's quite a scary entrance, a blood tribe powerful being sighed with emotion. No, that's definitely not that person. It must be a fake. Some of the mighty figures wore expressions of self-doubt as they refused to believe what they were seeing. The holy leader in their hearts didn't come on a rainbow cloud. He could have even come on a horse. What was he trying to do by riding a self-detonating rocket? Crimson spell formation veined patterns began to appear on the ground, flashing incessantly as a boundless power sucked in all of the shock waves from the rocket's explosion. The smoke and dust were also dispelled by a burst of power. A white-robed man with curly hair lay panting and swearing in the center of the crater. Holy F***ck, this Bai Ling is toxic. She didn't tell me that the rocket would self-destruct when she told me to use it to travel. What the hell is this? Is she a suicide bomber? And Lin's negative emotions continued to mount as he grumbled with an enraged expression. Even he himself did not know that the rocket would explode. If it were not for his thick skin, he would probably have died the moment he appeared. He would not have been able to save Hammer's people. What he didn't expect was that his way of entering the scene had indeed achieved its effect, giving the enemy a double blow, both physically and mentally. In particular, Emperor Yi Deng almost jumped up from his throne. You're Lin. Why are you here? Lin looked up and saw a dignified man wearing a blood-red emperor's robe and giving off a terrifying aura looking at him in shock. Yes, they were old acquaintances. Last time, this blood-race emperor had even led an army to hunt him down. Lin smiled and said, "Why? Can't I come here to take a walk because I'm bored?" The corner of Yi Deng's mouth twitched. You said you were here to take a stroll, but did that mean you were going to blow up someone else's house with a rocket? Soon, he realized an unbelievable fact. Don't tell me you're the divine ancestor they've been talking about? This was an extremely absurd speculation, but Emperor Yi Deng had no choice but to come to this conclusion. Could it be that you're the holy leader they've been talking about? It's me. I'm here to save the holy son of my sacred blood sect. If you're smart, you'd better scram. It's me. I'm here to save the holy disciple of the holy blood cult. Piss off if you know what's good for you. Lin's public admission of his identity created another massive stir among the blood tribe powerful beings in the immortal spirit paradise. In particular, the holy worshippers who were hiding among the blood tribe mighty figures had never seen the legendary holy leader before, only to find out that the holy leader was actually a human. This was a massive blow to everyone's hearts. They had always thought that the holy leader was a blood tribe mighty figure. Impossible. The holy leader that I've been yearning for, the one with the perfect blood, should be a noble young master with flowing golden hair and crimson eyes. How could he be a human? A beautiful blood tribe mighty figure exclaimed with tears streaming down her face. There must be a mistake. It's all fake. The sect leader of the Blood Wheel sect was also unable to accept this, and he began to sob. Ada, one of the 3 holy golden guardians, was also astonished. Lin, the sect leader of the 4-9 immortal sect. He's the holy leader that Helen is most wary of? They're obviously 2 completely unrelated identities. Lin ignored the emotional reactions of these blood tribe powerful beings. His divine sense instantly enshrouded the immortal spirit paradise to find that there was only one Tao integration stage super mighty figure here. It looked like the celestial quartz plan had succeeded. He then turned toward the Crimson Palace behind Emperor Yi Deng with a thoughtful expression. It looked like the entrance to the Blood Tribe Holy Land was within the palace behind Emperor Yi Deng. Emperor Yi Deng had already recovered from his shock, and a cruel smile appeared on his face. Ha ha, you're the holy leader? That's very surprising, but also very delightful. He abruptly stood up from his throne, and the power of the Crimson Divine Tao soared into the heavens. This power was imbued with a violent intent realm, and it was as if countless mountains of corpses and seas of blood had appeared in the air. The scent of blood wafted through the air, and even the air had become extremely viscous. I once swore a vow that I would only kill you after you reached the Return to Void stage. Now that you've reached the Return to Void stage, I haven't even had a chance to exact revenge on you, yet you've delivered yourself to me. The heavens are truly on my side. Emperor Yi Deng chortled with glee. He had already thought of countless ways to torture and humiliate Lin. The 3 holy golden guardians stood silently on the spot. There was no need for them to do anything, so they would just let Emperor Yi Deng take his revenge. Emperor Yi Deng had already reached the Tao integration stage many years ago, and his power was unfathomably powerful. Just from his aura alone, Lin could tell that Emperor Yi Deng was even more powerful than Feng Weia, holy leader. You've come here to die, and I'll grant you your wish. Emperor Yi Deng didn't waste any more time with words as he gripped the air toward Lin. Over 10,000 ferocious beasts in crimson armor suddenly appeared in the air before roaring and pouncing toward Lin. Their auras were imbued with the power of the Tao integration stage divine Tao, and their sharp claws were able to make the space around them wail and tremor. Useless chickens and stray dogs. Lin wielded his evil-slaying sword, and the origin energy of the netherworld instantly erupted forth as his aura soared explosively. At the same time, he slashed his sword through the air. His sword projection transformed into a vast expanse of darkness that instantly engulfed over 10,000 ferocious beasts in crimson armor. At the same time, Lin's eyes became a pure golden color, and a golden divine pattern appeared on his forehead. A paramount aura rippled outward for several hundred kilometers, enshrouding the entire heaven and earth. An ear-splitting voice instantly reverberated throughout heaven and earth. The holy leader of the Holy Blood cult is here. Where are the holy worshippers?